hapa Olkalao. Alafu mtu anasema nisimamishe hiyo mradi ati kwa sababu ya mambo yake ya kibinafsi. Hawa vijana 1120 nitapeleka wapi? Sio kama tunaelewana. Hii kazi mnasema iendelee ama mnasema tuikwamishe? Mnasema hii kazi iendelee? Ndio hawa vijana wapate kazi?
Ruto further assured Kenyans that in the next few weeks a number of them will be able to secure jobs in foreign countries.
Tumepanga digital jobs. Nimeongea na nchi ya Marekani, nimeongea na Wajerumani, nimeongea na watu wa Canada, nimeongea na watu wa Saudia, nimeongea na watu wa UAE, na tumepatiwa nafasi ajira zaidi ya 500,000, 500,000 jobs for our young people.
This as the president met with 120 members of the county assembly elected under the Jubilee Party at State House, Nakuru. The team led by the party's interim leadership, among them the party leader Sabina Shege, Secretary General Kanini Kega and Deputy Chairperson Aden Kainan, assured the president of their support. President Ruto and his Deputy Rigathi Gachagua promised to work with them, adding that in the past 1 year they had been focusing on paying the country's debt.
Mimi si kukupatia kura, na wengi hapa nikiwaangalia hivi tulikuwa tumeenda ijia hiyo. Ukweli ama si ukweli? But we want to say, Your Excellency, we have made a conscious decision.
Tukitoka hapa tuangalie mbele kama Jubilee, kwa sababu hatuwezi rudi kule tulitoka. Sasa we have our patron.
It's only that we found a difficult situation that was created by the former administration. We cannot keep on complaining about it. We just have to improve on what we found. So the beginning is a little bit difficult.
I hear many people say, oh, kuna shida mingi, kuna problem nyingi. The only problem we have in Kenya ni madeni. That's the only problem. And that is what has hitten my head for the last 1 year. Because if for every 10 shillings you collect, 7 shillings unaenda kulipa madeni, there is a problem, isn't it?
Matatu Owners Association Chair Albert Karakacha has suggested that the government should consider establishing training school for PSV drivers in order to reduce road accidents by 60%. Karakacha said majority of drivers don't have proper training, hence being a contributing factor to the number of accidents that have led to loss of lives. NTSA statistics show that road accidents across the country claimed 84 lives in the first week of this month. And coffee farmers in Nyeri County have demanded the immediate implementation of guaranteed minimum returns for their produce as promised by President William Ruto's campaign in 2022. The farmers, joined by local leaders, said it was time the Kenya Kwanza administration delivered on its promise to reward them for turning out to vote for the governing coalition. His sentiments were echoed by Mathira MP Eric Wamumbi, who said that farmers need GMR and waiver of their debt. And the Kiaru Member of Parliament Ndindi Nyoro has launched an education support program in which learners will pay as little as 1,000 shillings for fees. The program, known as Masomo Bora, significantly reduces the burden on parents in what was blamed on school dropouts. It covers the entire expenses of students in 17 selected schools, including the provision of school uniforms. Nyoro said investments are being made in school infrastructure, including classrooms, laboratories, libraries and sanitary facilities. And Kenya has received more than 32,000 travellers applications through the new electronic travellers authorization. Immigration PS Julius Bitok said this has enabled the immigration officials to collect over $1 million. He further said that 110 ETA requests were declined on national security grounds.
Right now, we don't have any backlog. Applicants come in on priority basis, they apply, and within 12-24 hours, they get the ITA. And for those who require further security check, they take a maximum of 72 hours to be processed. Why? Because we believe that security is very paramount for our country. We're also happy to say that of the 51 countries who have been coming to Kenya on visa-free, the system has given them priority, so that as soon as they apply for ETA, they're able to get it as soon as possible. So there's no backlog and there's no reason to worry. We invite all guests to come to Kenya and enjoy Kenya's sceneries.
This is Newsworm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.5 SpiceFM Kisumu.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
You tune into Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Ramanya.
Amen.
So 1 hour is over?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It gets over
Can you imagine
in 20 minutes.
what the big boys have also done?
I'm very proud of myself.
When you understand about partnership in politics, it's like the way marriage is these days. When you're looking for a wife, you're like, oh, maybe you can help me pay for fees as I pay for the rent.
Why should you have a lioness living in your bedroom?
I have to tell you a story. I went for a prayer meeting, which was called for the spouses of candidates for senators and governors. And when I got to the gate, the lady who was the secretary, she refused to. She's telling me, no. Leo tunataka wa mama. Leo ni wa mama. I'm telling her, no. She said, no, sio siku yenu. And I thought, there's a problem here, because if it was a man, but this was a lady.
It will be called First Ladies until you change the name.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people, and we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing politics of conmanship. And even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. Na hii mambo utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you very much, Eric, and it's good to be at the Situation Room.
Always a pleasure coming here. This is the most challenging interview panel in Kenya. You guys are very well informed, and as you can see, Charles today very philosophical.
To be poor in this country is the greatest sin you can commit, not just from a legal perspective, but from life generally. It is very, very skewed.
We've just heard on the floor of Parliament, just most recently, a leader within the ODM saying that sisi ni ng'ombe za baba.
Yeah.
Which means that you are willing to be milked dry.
Hapo.
You cannot force me to believe. I'll give way. If it's land that I'm told to return to you, I will. Okay? Because the court has said so. But I'll continue saying, hawa watu wamenirusha. That's all that I'm doing.
Good morning. At the end of the week, and what are we looking at? The city is still busy. Even early morning. Mombasa doesn't look too bad this morning as you're getting into the CBD. Whatever construction is taking place, seems they have taken a break, at least for now. All right, as you're coming off of Ngong Road, getting into the city, you're fine. The Thika Superhighway free and clear as well. We're not seeing much happening on Jogoo Road, just around the Makadara train station, heading out then towards the city. There's some movement there, but this is all get through without an issue. Coming in from Cabanas towards North Airport Road and then out towards the Eastern Bypass, I think we're going to be all right. It's still early pickings. Let's see what the morning pans out to be, end of the week, and let's see that we can make things happen smoothly. We'll talk on SpiceFM KE on X and keep things moving regardless this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
At 9 minutes after 6 o'clock. Let me try again. Good morning. How are you? 9 minutes after 6 o'clock. It's the it's the 12th of January 2024. And here we are, getting into the tail end of it. Good morning and welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. How are you doing? Karibuni sana sana. I am not alone. Actually, I am not. I'm in the presence of two of the finest. Una, good morning. No? How una day? Even if you're standing up, you must greet me. Titi, good morning.
I do.
How are you?
Fine, do.
Uko salama?
Yes, do.
Very good.
And yourself?
I'm all right.
You're all right.
I'm all right. Yeah.
It's good to be all right.
I'm kicking it.
You're kicking it? From here to where?
You don't worry.
Okay, I'll take your advice and I shall not worry.
Uko salama lakini?
Kabisa. Where the jana? My goodness gracious me. Man, the jams yesterday because of the rain.
Yeah, it was quite something.
Yeah.
Hey, saa ngapi?
Kama saa moja.
Yeah, really depending on where you are.
We'll talk up is the time, so, my friend. Unbelievable. Jam everywhere. Yes. Chock-a-blocked everywhere. Man, I don't know what it is about rain and us. It rains, people go crazy.
I can see better. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just, don't worry.
No. That's all right, sister.
I was just...
Go ahead.
My glasses...
No, sister. It's okay.
My glasses...
Right.
No, just
put
on the other one. That's the spirit.
Can you see?
Very well.
Okay.
These are prescription.
All right. Now, so that's where Mziki.
The prescription, and I can actually see very well.
Okay,
so this has told me that I need to get my lenses replaced because they're all scratched up. Yeah. How are you, Eric?
Mimi niko poa.
Salama.
Niko salama.
How long do you think I can actually pull this off?
You can pull it off.
What do you mean, how long?
For the next 4 hours. Yeah.
Why are you acting like you've never worn these glasses?
In here?
You got them so that you wear them, right?
Yes.
In the sun.
And you've
So
been wearing
wear
them, right?
In the sun.
Well,
But this
yeah,
glare
there's light.
is like the sun.
No, but they're for outside.
Nani?
Outside what?
If you borrowed them and you think the guy who lent them might see them, it's okay. They've already seen them. Just keep wearing them.
You can't use them, actually. You wouldn't be. Nobody else would be able to use them. So even if they were taken, they would be useless to the person.
Eric, do you understand why I'm being told this story?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't get it.
Me, I don't understand.
I don't know what the story is here.
There's no story.
Yeah?
My glasses are scratched.
Okay. That's it, huh?
Good morning, Eric. How are you?
I'm fine. Ednah, have you done like that? Yes, she's done like that. I think. Has she? No, she hasn't. How are you, everybody? Welcome to this Friday conversation. We'll be talking about several things. One of them is on wartime atrocities and humanitarian crisis. The repercussions of global inaction in the Horn. Which countries constitute the Horn of Africa?
Somalia, Djibouti, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Kenya. We'll just say Kenya because it's right there. That's the Horn.
Sudan. So there have been all these things happening in those countries, right? And Human Rights Watch feels that there's been global inaction. Zero or muted response to what's happening here. Other parts of the country, oh my God, let's talk about it. Let's go to the UN Security Council. Let's take action. Ethiopia has been in turmoil for a while. Sudan has been in turmoil for a while. Somalia has been... Mausi Segun is the Executive Director, Human Rights Watch Africa Division. She'll be joining us at 7 a.m. to talk more about this. It's Shegu. Okay.
Shegu.
So is the N pronounced?
Shegu. Well, it's implied.
And then you put an H somewhere.
S in Yoruba is usually sh.
Okay. So Maushi?
No.
S in Yoruba is usually?
Okay. In some cases.
Okay. So what's her name?
Mausi Shegu.
Mausi Shegu. Okay.
She might come and say it's different.
Watch as she comes. 8 a.m. 2023 KCSE results. There's still a lot that's unfolding on the matter of these results. Hey, as we'll see in the headline shortly. Wilson Sosion, former NAT Secretary General, joins us at 8 o'clock to have a conversation around this and to understand what's happening. And then at 9 a.m., let's talk about disability inclusion, a reality in Kenya. Haya Dennis is the chairman of the University of Nairobi Students with Disability Association and is also the interim chair of the Kenya Students with Disability Association. Is there proper inclusion when it comes to disability across the country? We'll discuss it at 9. Sawa. Things are like that. So we are live streaming the show as always, as usual. And if you're online, you need to know what you need to do. Just say hello. Many have already said hello. Don't be left behind. Ndu will give us the weather forecast, and then we'll acknowledge your presence.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
A bit of a drizzle in parts of Nairobi. It's cloudy at 16, highs of 24 and lows of 15. Cloudy at 17 in Nakuru with highs of 26 and lows of 16, and it's cloudy at 16 in Nyeri with highs of 25, and we'll see highs of 23 in a partly cloudy Eldoret at 14. Mombasa is partly cloudy at 26 with highs of 32, and we'll see highs of 32 as well in a mostly cloudy Malindi at 27. Kisumu is cloudy at 20 with highs of 26, and Kakamega at 18 is cloudy going to highs of 26. Looking into a rainy Kampala this morning at 20 with highs of 27, and Dar es Salaam is raining as well at 26 with highs of 30, back down to lows of 26. Cloudy conditions at 17 in Johannesburg with highs of 26, while Mogadishu is partly sunny already at 25 with highs of 32. It's 8 degrees and clear in Addis Ababa with highs of 25, and at 25 Lagos is clear with highs of 33. Mostly cloudy conditions at 24 in Kinshasa with highs of 31 and lows of 23. Friday afternoon is sunny at 2 degrees in Beijing with highs of 6 and lows of -5. 2 degrees and cloudy in Paris with highs of 3 and lows of -1. Extremely low temperatures, what is being called in London. It's cloudy at 5 with highs of 7 and lows of 2. Coastal flooding in New York. Crazy temperatures at 6, highs of 9 and lows of 2.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 SpiceFM, Nairobi.
Okay, good morning, says Don Sabwa. CT Ndu Eric Ednah Yego, a female student placed in a boys' national school. Wonders will never end. Yes, indeed. That was interesting to see. Jennifer Atenyi says, good morning, Spice family. Raphael Kige, good morning. Thanks to the rains in Nairobi. Looking forward to a hard truth conversation today. Indeed, good morning and welcome to Friday. I'm Jumbo Wanainchi, says R. Good morning to you. Evans Ntabo says, happy Friday to you all. Voila, I was just sending Edna a message about that. Tunawapenda sana, says R. Pierre's Rock says, Jumbo Kenya, listening from a wet Kilimani. When it rains, surely it pours. A problem for you, CT. Anne Gore is tuned in from the beautiful hills of Saboti. Jeffrey Mogaka says, good morning, CT, Eric, Ndu and Edna. Looking forward to a great show. Have a good day and good weekend ahead. Kennedy Anyonya says, good morning, my people. Let's thank God for the gift of life, indeed. So George Gashoiri is back in Manchester and says, happy Friday and have a great weekend. George Okoh is watching from Miami and says, Miami, the one in Florida, and says, good morning, my good people. You did a fantastic job with the ITCS. Santi, pin them down and let them tell the truth. Happy New Year, kings and queens. Kitengela Ikolok, says the Empress Talia. Good morning, everybody. Our economy isn't performing as well as it should be, says Zachary O'Deal. And he says the earlier we accept this, the better. Really. Sabit Yusuf is tuning from Dubai this morning and says, good morning. David Weed says, it's my last day in Bahrain. You're coming home. Oh, fantastic. Coming to Kenya. Good morning, everybody, and good morning, a specific one to Edna. Kurgat Kiplimo says, always a pleasure waking up to the best morning show. Cherargani, Trans Nzoia County. Lugwe Tunje is also tuned in, says, I love you guys. Tuned in from San Francisco is John K and says, I'm Jumbo. Good morning from Tattoo City. Locked in is George Muturo. Kennedy also here. Ruth Mugo tuned in from Kiambu Road. Robert Tobogo is in Mombasa. And Crispin Amolo is tuned in as well. Sam Otoigo, Amayo Keo, Desmond Otis. Everybody's here. Tony Malila says good morning. PK Kiongozi Omosh. Livinus Onogu. Good morning, sir. Kiongozi Omosh. And John Macau. Everybody's here. Karibu.
That guy, Rutherford, is also online.
Rutherford.
That one. He's awake, as well as Kaiser Obed. City, final day of provost from
Kenya.
The
Republic of Kenya.
Okay.
Asiyekosa hayupo.
Asiyekosa
hayupo.
Asiyekosa hayupo.
Yes.
I have no idea.
Translate, man.
It's true. Hayupo, something about somebody's not there. That I'm at a loss for the rest.
Kukosa, what is kukosa?
To make a mistake. Or to wrong somebody, yeah? Hayupo what?
Asiyekosa hayupo. Not hayupo what?
I see. Maybe, I don't know.
Say, just go
if
on.
one doesn't make a mistake, they're not alive.
Go on.
I don't know.
You actually do know what it is. You're struggling to make it perfect when it was imperfect to begin with. So, just say what comes to mind.
So try again. Go.
One is not. If you don't make mistakes, I don't know.
You're not there.
You're not alive.
Stop hesitating yourself. Just say.
If you don't make mistakes, you're not alive.
Correct.
Yeah, is that
Yes,
it?
that's it.
Okay.
There's no one who does not make mistakes.
Very true.
Yes, that's simply it.
All right. Yeah.
I knew you had it. That is why I kept insisting. You may get.
You may get.
Ukonayo. Okay, headlines.
Nomination city. Headlines. Let me start with the Standard.
Nation.
Tafadhali. Facelift for
Kuna nation mbili bwana.
Kuna moja.
Bwana kuna nation mbili bwana.
Facelift. What's facelift in Kiswahili?
Kuinua sura.
Facelift for State House after 17 years. For the next 2 months, President William Ruto.
After 117, not 17.
Oh, I'm sorry. I left out a one. After 117 years, State House gets a facelift. For the next 2 months, President William Ruto will be shuttling between various state houses and state lodges as the century-old State House in Nairobi undergoes extensive renovations following an assessment by engineers that the expansive colonial-era structure was increasingly becoming unfit for habitation. 1907 is when it was built. 700-acre property as the official residence of the British East Africa governor. That was then. So, they've decided it's about time that something was done. In other headlines, cracks in Azimio as leaders train their guns on Kalonzo. And Kalonzo Musyoka has decided, I am running for president in 2027. And my campaign start when? Now.
Okay.
The implementation from the dialogue talks, remember those? The Ruto-Raila talks report is set for implementation. According to House Minority Leader Opiyo Wandayi. It's set for adoption by Parliament. And, once that happens, then it's through and through. Okay. The puzzle of schools where students scored grade D. And CS Mashogu has some questions to answer, it would appear. Okay, on the front page of The Nation, junior secondary in trouble again. And you wonder why. There are 3 things. Number 1, there's a staffing crisis. Really? Surprise, surprise. Schools facing a massive teacher shortage with TSC the TSC themselves putting the number at a high of 42,000. That's the shortage. Syllabus woes. Rationalization of learning areas led to reduction in subjects, but the textbooks are not ready. Sibling rivalry, interns on contract who earn less feel they are superior to their primary school counterparts. So you're an intern at that level, at secondary, you don't have a contract, but you still feel as though you're superior to those who are teaching at the primary level with or without your contract. So there's some issues here and there, you know.
It's the egos.
Ego is showing proper. A peek into the thrilling but risky life of a bouncer. We did see the Gazette where it talked about bouncers, security guards. All of you must do what? Have license or something like that.
Be trained.
Must be trained. Yep. Principals face probe over withheld results. Examinations Council, TSC summon head teachers. Remember that the grade 6 is sat an exam, the KIPSEA, on the same days that the KCPE was sat. We still don't know the results, just in case you're wondering. MPs to defy the courts. Really? And they're holding hearings on the housing bill. Parliament is set next week to embark on public hearings for the Affordable Housing Bill 2023, which seeks to provide a comprehensive legal framework for the implementation of the government's housing plan. So they said, yeah, court said we're not doing, but you know what, let's just go ahead and talk about this. So, you know, do whatever you want. Banana Republic, do whatever you want.
Business Daily. US firms enjoy billions in savings from Ruto tax cut. US firms, 2 firms with operations in Kenya, have reported enjoying significant tax benefits arising from the move last year by President William Ruto's administration to cut taxes for local branches of foreign companies. Orma Technologies Inc., a US company that has power generation operations in Kenya, disclosed a tax benefit of 1.49 billion shillings, suggesting that foreign companies will make billions of shillings in savings from the controversial Finance Act 2023 that reduced the corporate tax for the branches from 37.5% to 30%. The decision aligned the corporate tax for foreign companies with the rate paid by resident ones. US-based tower firm American Tower Corporation also reported tax savings against the backdrop of a public backlash locally over mounting taxes and levies. Okay? Traded coffee volumes and prices rebound on fresh crop. The volumes and prices at the Nairobi Coffee Exchange have improved, buoyed by inflows of higher quality fresh crop and deliveries of old stocks by cooperative societies from the Mount Kenya region. Data from the exchange shows volumes offered for sale at the exchange improved from 3,700 bags on August 15th, representing the 30th auction, to 20,199 bags on December 13th. Wow. Treasury eases firms' headache over e-teams. So, remember when we had the conversation here with the manager for e-teams, and she said, all right, so for small people, small ones, we're going to make it a bit better. Businesses with difficulties in complying with the current configuration of the e-teams now have an opportunity to tailor-make an alternative system which fits their special needs. Christmas, New Year shopping fails to lift jobs, and Coca-Cola bottler seeks 10 months for new bottle labels. City, tell us on what's in the Star and then I'll tell you the Nairobian.
In the Star newspaper, top right-hand corner in burnt orange, Siasa, let's be patriotic and back Ruto's visionary projects for prosperity.
Let's be patriotic
and back Ruto's visionary projects for prosperity.
Who says this?
This is in the Siasa pages, which is on page 5. Siasa pages, okay? So let's back. I thought we were already doing that by paying taxes.
Paying taxes.
Okay, but probably there's more we need to do. We'll look at that, won't we? Raila's 30-day ODM blitz amidst threats of demos. Okay? Azimio leader Raila Odinga has lined up back-to-back countrywide rallies amidst threats of a possible return to the streets over the high cost of living. ODM top decision-making organ, Central Management Committee, on Wednesday released Raila's tight schedule that will see him tour 9 counties by the end of the month. Sawa, we've got you, we've understood. Why the sick are dying in hospitals awaiting therapy. It's a story on page 9. Yes, deadly delays, meaning someone goes into an emergency and they're attended to 12 hours later. That can't possibly be an emergency, can it?
No.
Right. Now, bang in the middle of the paper, costly ways. Bills from court cases have grown by 16 billion in 1 year. Okay. Shillings 85 billion penalties. How hefty awards drain state coffers. Really? They are mainly a result of procurement blunders by bureaucrats. Again, really? This is a story on page 4 and 5. And then again, there's always a picture in the middle of the paper. There's a picture of border riders, and its headline, smiling border hard at work, heedless of overloading dangers. There's a pictures of border carrying 3 people. And there it's not one, it is several. Okay? Carrying 3 what?
People.
And the people they're carrying are students. Yes. As you can see. Students going to school. Bas. Now that's where we are. Now, in the newspaper that is referred to as the Nairobian, we have several stories. Life after death. Family seeks cloth to use in ritual to reveal kin's cause of death. This is page 11 of the... Yes, somebody died, okay? And they say, there's a gentleman called Wanaswe, he was a pastor. He was accused of defilement, killed himself in a holding cell. Now, the family have said, okay, we've got it, but we want a piece of cloth so that we can perform a traditional ritual to determine how he actually died. This thing you're telling us, we're not really getting it. Okay, then safety. Who will exorcise demons on killer highways? Story on page 14 and 5. It's a picture of a mangled vehicle, literally mangled. Okay, means the collision, and it collided with a lorry tanker, to be precise, and that vehicle was traveling at a high speed, mangled, completely mangled. Then bang in the middle. No, let's not go bang in the middle first. Ushuru, if you are serious about taxing tithe, then sue God, Bishop says. That's what we see. He says, okay. You guys want, I've heard. You guys want to introduce this law. Okay?
Take God to
court. He's going to institute this thing. Stop joking with us. Heathens. Okay. Sawa. Then in the bang, now in the middle of the paper, taken. Elders say Daddy Owen cannot dump his newfound love. Culture. Abasotso, that is where Openje comes from. Culture. This is the Council of Elders say President William Ruto's daughter was invited the way the lawyer sub-tribe invites a woman who has joined the community as a wife. Page 7. Me, I don't understand these things. But that's what they say.
Okay.
All right? Sawa. Okay? Good Samaritan. Woman who saved Museveni's life by hiding him in a hole. This is story on page 11. This story should be interesting. Museveni was saved, man.
By a woman.
Yes.
He entered a hole.
He entered a hole. Then, again, Lords of Chaos. How raids on Kenyatta's Northlands was planned. This is story on page 4 and 5. Remember that?
Yes.
Yes, remember that?
Yes.
Remember that, yes. Northlands. Yes, now that one, there's a story about this Northlands and how people harvested trees, took dopa, livestock, bundled them into boots, etc. And that story has long been forgotten, and it shouldn't be. That is the Nairobian for you.
I like your in-depth analysis.
Very good.
Yes.
Very good. There's also an interesting story here by the Homa Bay woman rep Joyce Osogo, who reveals that she was a difficult woman to seduce during her youth. Bensouda says she chose her husband, Jeremiah Obongo, after thorough vetting.
By whom?
Her.
Okay. I believe her.
I do. I do too.
He was not found wanting.
Tell us about traffic.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Okay, so this morning, what are we looking at? Traffic, different parts of the city. Let's take a look at what's coming off the Thika Superhighway. For now, it doesn't look too bad. I think we'll see traffic moving on without an issue until you get to right around Survey, which we can see now. And then you get past Muthaiga Square at the junction, heading out towards the Pangani Underpass, and there's movement after that. But before that, you're going to get stuck in the tunnel, at least for now. There's movement right around the DCI headquarters, actually a little bit of traffic. And then there after there's nothing. So there must be something happening that has stalled that. Waiakiwe, you're fine getting into the city. Let's take a look at James Gishuru, and it's clear. Over the drift, we're seeing that it's starting to slow down some. So that probably means that we'll get into a jam along the way there. On on Gong Road, you're fine getting into the CBD, and you're also okay as you come off Haile Selassie for now. It's a bit of a change from the last couple of days. And Eye on Things is what we'll do. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on X as we keep things moving this morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
We know that problems in junior secondary are far from over. We'll look at that story later. But the Shakahola issue is still an issue, all right? We may not have talked about phase 6 of exhumations for a while and been shown the numbers in terms of what we found so far, but we know that the area is still cordoned off and that they still continue to do their work. While all this is happening, a gentleman still remains behind bars. And on page 8 of The Nation today, they're telling us why the police are finding it hard to prosecute Mackenzie. Okay? They're in a bit of a pickle, and let's understand why. So last year, on the 14th of April, the police officer police officers who had been covertly trailing the activities of Paul Mackenzie following his links to the murder of 2 children in Shakahola were informed that 10 more people had died in the forest after starving. Now, this is when we started to see this unfolding, and we began to hear the stories of more and more bodies having been found. Now, they exposed the activities near the forest, and we saw that over 400 bodies so far had been exhumed. That number definitely is going up. Now, where we are today is that despite multiple evidence from his surviving followers and testimonials by relatives of victims, detectives probing the case are still trying to link evidence collected from the crime scene to murder. Get me so far? The items collected as evidence, including exercise books, SIM cards, title deeds, clothes, and burial paraphernalia, which provide key clues such as names of members of a family that were living in one of the 220 homesteads located in the vast 4,000-acre field. Now, Chief Government Pathologist Johansen Odur said all of the exhumed bodies could not be identified as some were badly decomposed. So that's an element of evidence that has been tossed out the window. Detectives discovered that in a bid to aid faster decomposition of the bodies, the people conducting the burial rites would wrap them in sheets or canvas. So delays in prosecuting Mr. Mackenzie and pressure from the public to have the case concluded saw senators tour the Directorate of Criminal Investigations lab last October to search for answers. Senate went to DCI lab to look for clues. Now, to successfully prosecute murder, the investigating officer has to establish the suspect's intent to commit the crime and link that intent to the action committed that led to a victim's death. This must be established. If not, you then cannot prove murder. According to a detective who cannot be named owing to the sensitivity of this matter, investigators probing the case explained that they had run out of key agents for use in the DNA sequencing and which are not available locally. Therefore, none of the bodies that had been marched by October. Therefore, none of the bodies had been marched by October. Additionally, the fact that the DCI lab was not fully operational hindered the probe even further. Furthermore, orders from the DCI, Mohammed Amin, that evidence of the murder charge be proven beyond reasonable doubt to avoid the risk of presenting half-baked evidence or conducting shoddy investigations, had seen detectives scouring the vast forest thoroughly, one homestead after the other, in search of this evidence. So to tighten the evidence, they had to fetch the coordinates of each grave and homestead for use by the judge handling the murder case in the event of the hearing of the case that requires them to revise the crime scene. So police are finding it difficult to prosecute the man because they cannot find evidence that links him directly between intent and the commission of murder. They've held him for almost a year, asking for more time to prosecute, asking for more time, I beg your pardon, to investigate. And now they're saying, actually, the linkages between the evidence they find and intent to commit murder are now non-existent.
These people are just jokers. Kithure Kindiki said, we are going to lock this man's throat. We are going to charge him with genocide.
Treason, genocide, everything in your mother's kitchen sink. He'll die in jail.
So Shakahola is just a very, 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 very sad affair. Because as we speak, almost a year later, more than 10 months after the first grave was discovered, after the first person was found having starved to death, we are still digging up graves.
Yes.
To date.
Yes. The area is still cordoned off.
There's absolutely no explanation why this operation would take more than 10 months. It's flat land. There's been no natural disaster there. As you can't say that in June there was an earthquake which then went and buried more
bodies even deeper.
You can't. Nothing has changed. Why would it take 10 months plus to say we are digging up graves, we are doing this and the other? People who lost their loved ones, the 600 plus people who went and registered and said we have lost our loved one, we believe they could be one of the dead. They're waiting for answers.
Johnson Odor has told us as well that some of the bodies are mangled beyond recognition.
Their concerns have been lost in all this drama.
Yes.
No one is talking about them.
No closure, no anything for them.
There's no moving forward at all. They don't know what's happening. They're just waiting.
You know, somebody told me at the start of this thing, somebody said, Mackenzie, they'll lock him up for some time, they'll do their business, and the guy will go.
Yeah.
There'll be nothing. And unfortunately, this is what it's turning out to be.
There's absolutely nothing. They have nothing on this guy.
They have nothing.
And, well, having nothing on this guy is one, all right? But then even just concluding something. At least finishing
exhumation.
Up. Yes. If you match bodies by DNA, hand over those bodies to the families and let them know this is it. There's closure. We have moved from this point. It goes on and on and on and on and on. And you have an operation that's costing money on a daily basis. There are people who need to be fed, part of the operation. There are people who need to be... This is just a cash cow. It's a place where the government is spending money. And there are people in government who know. It's for them, what you delay, we make more money.
And then, for me, okay, let us say, so these numbers marry. They cross the same lines, right? The 600 who are being looked for, highly possible that some of those names cross over into this 430 that have actually been dug up. But that matching has not, number one, has not taken place.
Yep.
Okay? So they'll do one of two things. At some point, the law will be heard and the magistrate will say, guys, you've not given me, but they already talked about it a couple of days ago.
Charge this guy.
You've not given me anything. We cannot keep this guy here. These charges are bailable. You either bring us something or you let the man go. Now they're running around chasing their tails looking for the something. We cannot even match between the bodies that have actually been exhumed and the lists of individuals who are coming. Johnson Odor said some of these, we cannot even start to identify them because they've been so... They've reached so far in the decomposition.
Yeah. They can be identified.
What are we doing?
DNA matching. It doesn't matter. A piece of hair
absolutely
can match and say that
this is a cracked tooth.
Yes.
It can. But now what are they telling you? That the agents that they require for sequencing have finished. They're not available in the country. I don't know if they buy it on Jupiter. Is there a flight to Jupiter?
It's a really, really bad attitude by government. It's the same thing that we say. This Ministry of Interior, what it's doing there, what's been doing in the north. Yesterday there was a story about a family that was attacked by bandits in Baringo. Father, mother, 2 children killed. A 4-year-old girl survived.
Jesus Christ.
An entire family wiped out. A 4-year-old girl survived from bandit attacks in Baringo. Kithure has been telling us this thing is
Hata
over.
nikienda kuishi hapo.
This thing is over. Our operation has been heavily successful. We have finished these bandits. They are attacking villagers just like that.
You know the thing that
questions
I
need to be asked of this particular ministry
and answered.
Yeah,
and answered.
One of the things that is often a simple, sad truth is that the truth will out. You know, they can regale us with all these stories, narratives, lots of conversations, lots of shouting, lots of banter. You know, certain basic truths remain. That banditry problem is not over. This matter of Shakahola is being bungled before our very eyes. And you have to ask yourself the question, why is it going this way? Are you telling us that the police are not able to unravel this thing and that they are not able to solve it? They can. Why are they not being allowed to do so?
Yeah.
Are we also saying that these problems that we keep talking about on a daily basis cannot be solved? They can. Why are they not being solved?
Because people just have a bad attitude. The behavior of, okay, yeah, well, we'll get round to it. If we do, well, it's just that thing. You know, we'll handle.
Yeah.
Oh, you won't handle.
Yep. Those people don't matter to the government. They're just numbers. It's 600, okay, yeah.
Finish, close the place.
Yeah, let it run for a while and then we finish that story. Ruto had said we're going to have a commission, we're going to investigate, we're going to... South Africa yesterday accused Israel of breaching the UN Genocide Convention as it opened a case at the International Court of Justice, saying that even the deadly October 7th Hamas attack could not justify such allegations, such alleged actions, rather. Pretoria has lodged an urgent appeal to the ICJ to force Israel to immediately suspend its military operation in Gaza. Israel has dismissed this case as atrocious and preposterous and will lay out its defense today. No armed attack on a state territory, no matter how serious, can provide justification for or defend breaches of the convention. That is South Africa's Justice Minister Ronald Lamola. Israel's response to the October 7th attack has crossed this line and is giving rise to the breaches of the convention. This one has taken some new international twist. South Africa says, we stand with the people of Palestine. We are taking this matter to the UN court at The Hague, and we are saying you have breached the UN convention, which you're a part of. You are committing genocide in Palestine.
Never experienced it.
Oh, yes. Israel President Isaac Herzog has already hinted at his country's likely defense against what he called an atrocious and preposterous claim. We will present proudly our case of using self-defense under international humanitarian law, he said. He added that the army was doing its utmost under extremely complicated circumstances on the ground to make sure that there will be no unintended consequences and no civilian casualties.
What?
That's what they're doing. The soldiers on the ground are really working really hard under extremely difficult circumstances.
Is what exactly then?
This is after having worked extremely hard to make sure that there are no severe... It was not their intent.
It's due to unavoidable circumstances.
So like, when they go blow up a hospital where there are children in treatment, it's unintended circumstances. Okay.
The US is backing Israel, with the State Department describing the charges as unfounded. In fact, it is those who are violently attacking Israel who continue to openly call for the annihilation of Israel and the mass murder of Jews, said U.S. Defense spokesman Matthew Miller. Because this is an urgent procedure, the ICJ could rule in a matter of weeks. Its rulings are final and they cannot be appealed. However, countries do not always follow the court's verdicts. It has ordered Russia to stop its invasion of Ukraine, for example. And
Russia has not stopped its invasion of Ukraine.
Yes.
So,
tell us something.
There is a lie that's being perpetrated on page 4 and 5.
A lie?
Oh, yes, it is. Because the lie is this. We are being told that the 85 billion shilling penalties, these hefty awards have drained state coffers.
Okay.
85 billion. No. 85 billion cannot drain state coffers. Not really. Can't even dent it.
What are these penalties?
Well, that is what I want to get to. Okay. Treasury data shows that the Office of Registrar of Political Parties has only settled 1.1 billion of the 4.1 billion that was awarded to Raila Odinga party. That is how I'm kicking off this particular story. Okay. Details have emerged of the hefty awards that the courts have slapped on government, coming at a time President Ruto has opened an unprecedented fight back against the judiciary. The Star has established that the court fines now stand at 85 billion, jumping by 16 billion from 69 billion in 2021. The awards are mainly a result of procurement blunders by government bureaucrats, such as irregular termination of contracts. There's no such thing in this country. President Ruto has not recently talked about the awards. However, there are concerns within government that the massive court awards are increasingly draining public coffers. Ruto has, in a no-holds-barred tirade, taken on the judiciary, accusing them of what he terms judicial impunity to stop his projects. The president has claimed there are corrupt judicial officers working with litigants to continue benefiting from sleaze. Data from the National Treasury shows that between 2021 December and 2023, the government only settled 10 billion arising from court awards. So even if it was draining the coffers, only 10 billion was settled. Right, the government has appealed some of the cases. Last year, the president decried how the suits drained the state and warned agencies against suing each other. He lamented that the government ended up paying huge amounts of money to lawyers, the same drawn from taxpayers' coffers. Kwani, does the government not have a legal officer? And this person is actually called the AG.
Yeah.
He's not advisor. Are you saying that these are things that cannot be talked about by this office? And settlements arrived at, agreements arrived at, all the things that we're reading here. And this is one AG we don't hear from. Have you heard from him?
Sometimes you want to ask whose age.
He's former speaker.
I know who it is, but because of this silence that you speak of, sometimes on such matters where you would hope that there would be some kind of legal advisory for the state is ensconced in that office, that you would hear the voice a little bit more.
In many cases, you'll actually find that the AG has given his opinion and advisory. But that is not binding, because then the various state departments and state actors will go ahead and do what they wanted to do in the first place, because this contract is being entered to with a view to stealing. We'll enter into a contract, we will breach the contract, we will have a dispute, we will settle.
Budgetary corruption.
Yes.
It's planned.
From the very beginning. From the very beginning. It's basically just designed that this thing will go and it will end up this way.
And then we'll organize that you are paid.
Yeah.
So if there's an increase, what does it tell us?
That is increase.
You know, if there's one thing that the government is good, the government is replete with people who know systems and understand procedures. It is the last place you're going to tell me that if someone breached procurement processes. Man, that is the one place people know.
Yep.
They have layers and layers of procedures and people understand them. They don't even read a book, they just tell you.
Yep.
And then you're telling me there's a breach. The breach was intended, otherwise it wouldn't have existed. Nonetheless, let me just read some court awards against the government, okay? 40.7 billion against Ministry of Health. 31 billion energy infrastructure and ICT. 5.6 billion Ketraco. 401 million IEBC. 705 million Interior Department. This one here, you have to be a bit careful. 2.3 billion Public Service Department. 5.2 billion Treasury. 454 million Devolution Department. 87 million Foreign Affairs Department. 26 billion Agriculture.
So they are paying the awards, so have they started paying?
Government pays when it wants to pay. I mean, what are you going to do?
Okay, there's no money, so
you've sued them. You've gone to court. She's been awarded.
You wait for money. You wait. Or you are going to go and take us to court that we're now in breach of order.
In breach of order. Appeal. When it appeals, now you wait some more.
Hey.
And even if Court of Appeal agrees, they say, sour. You wait.
Yeah, I don't have it right now. You wait. What are you going to do?
You see, the waiting has a tail to it, in that there are people who are awarded and they are paid. So how are they paid?
And some waiting is also part of the scheme.
Yes.
As you wait, it's accruing interest.
Yes.
It's part of just
So
a
it
long
becomes a
scheme.
genuinely hefty.
It's like this scheme called the housing fund and the housing levy. All right. So government comes up with this brilliant idea, we're going to do housing. All right. The government comes up with a brilliant idea, we're going to have a housing levy. Government comes up with a brilliant idea, no tax, no levy, not tax, levy, tax, levy, blah. Finance Act says tax people for housing. But then there's no corresponding law that says where this money will go and how this money shall be utilized. Okay? Until people go to court and say, wait, mnafanya upuzi gani? It's okay. We'll come up with a bill that addresses this issue. Okay? That we'll call it the Affordable Housing Bill. Okay? We are going to deal with it. Okay? We shall create the fund. Okay? And it shall tell us how we shall use the money. Okay? So they come up with a bill. Kimani Ichung'wah, the leader of the majority in the National Assembly, takes it to Parliament. Somebody goes to court in Kisumu, and the Kisumu High Court issued conservatory orders stopping public participation on the bill until that matter is determined. The orders were issued after litigants moved to court after the National Assembly Committee on Housing and Finance, in a notice published in the dailies on December 9th, invited the public and stakeholders to submit memoranda on the bill. Ichung'wah now says those orders by that High Court in Kisumu only apply in respect of the conduct of public participation in the manner indicated in the advert that had been issued on December 9th on submission of memoranda, but it did not halt public participation process per se. So saying, when they went to court, they talked about submission of memoranda. We are now going... The orders did not prohibit Parliament from conducting any other form of public participation, including undertaking public hearings across the country on the bill, or the ordinary stakeholder engagement with key sectors, experts, workers, employers, informal sector, political parties, civil society. In this regard, now the two committees of the National Assembly intend to conduct public hearings across the country. See, the issue was presentation of memoranda.
Yes.
It was
that
not
one
about
is being dealt with.
Yeah. We are going to now conduct public hearings, have a sitting. In fact, there's a full-page advert in today's paper.
For that,
notification of an invitation to public hearings. If you're in Narok, it's going to happen at Narok Town Social Hall on Wednesday 17th. Embu Talent Academy, Wednesday 17th. Thursday, Kisii ATC Hall, and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. They're saying, come, let us hear you speaking.
Right. But so what they're saying is that the initial
public participation will go on.
Yeah, and so it doesn't preclude this public participation. Okay.
As in, they're just barreling it down and saying, okay, what? We are going to have public participation. We're going to have this thing will come to court. What is really, really paining me is that Parliament actually allowed the government to start collecting this money without Parliament knowing it has not given them a law on how to utilize the money. And Parliament is sitting back and operating as if, kwani nini kubwa.
This Parliament, just wait. Just wait. Their day will come sooner than they think. Because you cannot blame the Ruto government without blaming Parliament.
Yes.
Squarely.
Yes.
They are supposed to ensure that certain things either happen or not happen. Now, things which are now causing these problems, it is them who have allowed these things to take place.
And right now, as we speak, the money that has been collected through the housing fund, more than 12 billion shillings, Parliament has no idea whether that money is intact, whether it's being used, whether it's paid debt, whether it's paid salary,
whether it has built houses.
Where it's nestled.
Where is it? Where is the money?
This is the time they're coming up with a law. They should be answering, where is the money at present?
Good Lord.
This is nonsense. Anyway, in Kenya, it is 2024. We continue. Keep it here for more conversations. Coming up in the next hour, we talk about the conflict in the Horn of Africa and the global silence around it. Good morning, 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Operation Linda Jamii has called on the Ministry of Education to address concerns raised by parents, teachers and students in relation to the 2023 KCSE results. Director Fred Ogola says they've received more than 600,000 complaints from parents regarding the results.
Linda Jamii and its affiliate partners, offices in Nakuru, Mombasa, Malindi, Kilifi, Kwale, Kisumu, Kiambu, Tana River, among other areas, have this morning registered complaints from an average of 77 parents. That's about 616 cases of KCSE exams irregularities complaints from different parents.
Ogola stressed the need for reforms to be carried out in the education sector in order to deal with the recent complaints raised as a result of the national examinations.
Looking at the results per data, it's high time we shift from semantic arguments and deal with data, actions, and lasting reforms. Constitutionally, the government of the day ought to provide education for every Kenyan learner. However, it is alarming that we have lost touch with quality. For the record, the number of E's recorded this year is about 20,000 higher compared to the previous years.
More candidates submitted their papers just today before the closure of the submissions of nomination papers for the LSK elections. Peter Wanyama joined those seeking the LSK presidency after filing his papers pledging to ensure that the rule of law prevails and that all arms of government obey the law. Wanyama joins Bernard Ngetich, Caroline Kamende and LSK Vice President Faith Adhiambo in the race for the presidency. Shadrach Kwambu, who is seeking to be the Nairobi representative, also submitted his papers.
Kenyans cannot afford basic commodities. Kenyans cannot afford the high cost of living. So we have a problem. Majority of Kenyans are actually suffering. So it is in this environment the Law Society of Kenya will stand and play an important role. What is the role of the Law Society of Kenya, which I'll be leading? The role of the Law Society of Kenya will be to stand for the people. So the message to the President is that the Law Society of Kenya will be reminding you, it will remind you to follow the rule of law.
A very heartbeat of legal practice is here in Nairobi. And I have in my own personal capacity and as the chair of the Sheria Mtaani, Shadrach Kwambu, been at the forefront in championing for public interest litigation in ensuring that we call out the government whenever it does anything wrong.
And Kenya received more than 32,000 travelers' applications through the new electronic travelers authorization. Immigration PS Julius Bitok said these have enabled the immigration officials to collect over $1 million. He further said that 110 ETA requests were declined on national security grounds. Bitok added that the removal of visa requirements for all foreign nationals visiting and transiting through Kenya was said to boost tourism and attract more foreign investments.
Ours really to let you know that we are doing so well. The system is really very good. People are really enjoying it. And we believe that we are going to double the number of tourists, the number of travelers coming to Kenya with a new policy announced by His Excellency the President.
Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka has raised objections to the recent 16% increase in electricity prices, expressing concerns about its adverse impact on Kenyan citizens. Kalonzo said President William Ruto's government has been failing Kenyans by continually raising taxes, making life difficult for Kenyans. He further noted that those price hikes had led to an escalation in the cost of living, leaving Kenyans feeling tired, hungry and angry. Kiharu Member of Parliament Ndindi Nyoro has launched an education support program in which learners will pay as little as 1,000 shillings for fees. The program, known as Masomo Bora, significantly reduces the burden on parents in what was blamed on school dropouts. It covers the entire expenses of students in 17 selected schools, including the provision of school uniforms. Nyoro said investments are being made in school infrastructure, including classrooms, laboratories, libraries, and sanitary facilities. And Matatu Owners Association Chair Albert Karakacha has suggested that the government should consider establishing training schools for PSV drivers in order to reduce road accidents by 60%. Karakacha said majority of drivers don't have proper training, hence being a contributing factor to the number of accidents that have led to loss of lives. NTSA statistics show that road accidents across the country claimed 84 lives in the first week of this month. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
On the Thika Superhighway this morning, traffic is heavy. It's coming in from beyond Survey, heading out into the CBD, and it's going to go on to at Pangani there. It's going to split and then going out towards Ngara. It's heavy on Kiambu Road, and we're looking at traffic having built up on Limuru Road as well. Coming off of Waiaki Way into the CBD, that's heavy, and we're looking at traffic then building on Ring Road, Westlands, and so all of that will culminate in some crazy Friday morning traffic. This also joining with folks coming off of Mombasa Road, past the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, heading towards Haile Selassie at the junction. Busy. On Jogo Road as well, as you're heading out towards the City Stadium roundabout, that's heavy. But then Kamkunji and Haile Selassie not doing too poorly today, so stuff to watch out for. Coming in from Cabanas, going towards North Airport Road is free and clear for now, moving towards the Eastern Bypass. All to watch. Friday morning, not doing too badly. Keeping an eye on things, and we'll talk on SpiceFM KE on X.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start
Friday.
your day.
It's the 12th day of 2024. Welcome to The Situation Room if you're just joining us on KTN Home, on SpiceFM, on YouTube and on Facebook, where we live stream the show every weekday morning. Asante sana for choosing this as the way to start your day. Are you thinking about school fees? Well, paying school fees for your children or supporting somebody who has children in school and they require school fees? Well, Kiwi is also telling you we can help.
Shop Kiwi this weekend. Think about it. And once you walk into where you will buy, your choice, really, at your supermarket, etc., pick up a tin of Kiwi today, but make sure that it's the new logo Kiwi tin. Once you do, you will see the Starburst. Starburst has this number, *459 *5#. Put the code, which you'll find when you pop the lid into that, and you get airtime or data immediately. And then you enter into a draw. This draw then is guaranteeing 4 people are winning 35,000 shillings every week. You still have a chance to rake in those fees and step up and shine with Kiwi this month.
Indeed. Also reminding you about Maramoja Taxi City. Is the one.
It's the one. I mean, there are taxis, and there are taxis, and then there are apps, and then there are apps. Think about Maramoja.
And then there's Maramoja.
Yeah. But the thing that I found interesting is how those who use the app, the taxi drivers, the taxi owners, praise the app. And they say one thing in unison. That is from the people whose taxis I have been carried in.
Yep.
They are the best paying app.
Best paying.
Yes. But what I like now as a consumer of that particular product is how it is simple to actually, simple, and you also get well informed about who it is you're riding with and what it is that you need to do. When you have a partner who communicates with you effectively, and the partner here is somebody who's supposed to take you from point A to B, then it makes your life that much more easier.
Yes. Download Maramoja Taxi today on your phone. Just go to Play Store, App Store, look for Maramoja Transport Company. Then you look at the blue icon, download that one. Start using Maramoja today. If you use the code SPICE30, you will get a 30% discount on your next ride. The code is SPICE30 for a 30% discount on your next ride. It's the way to go. Okay? Now let's have a conversation about the Horn of Africa and what's been happening in the Horn of Africa. There was a press release that was issued yesterday by the Human Rights Watch about what's been happening in the Horn, the atrocities and all. And it's actually titled this particular press release. I had it.
As you're
I'll
looking
open
for it, why don't I welcome the guest to the program?
Yes.
Yes.
No. I want to introduce the guest, but I want to introduce the topic.
Yes.
Okay. The Executive Director of Human Rights Watch Africa Division, Mausi Shegun.
Well done.
Did I get it? Ndo?
You did.
I did, eh? Mausi, did I get it?
You did a good job.
Mausi Shegun is our guest this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Thank you for having me.
Karibu sana. Our sister from Nigeria told me earlier how to pronounce your name before you got in. So I got leakage. That's how come I was able to pronounce it that way. Karibu sana to Kenya. Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice. That's her.
That's her.
Nigerian by birth.
Nigerian by choice.
Nigerian by choice.
Always.
Okay. The press release yesterday was titled Horn of Africa, Impunity Fueling Abuses. Civilians are bearing the brunt of global inaction on wartime atrocities, humanitarian crises. We'll be talking about that shortly. To welcome you to the conversation, CT has the day's proverb. Every week, CT goes to one African country, picks proverbs from that country, and then he gives us a proverb a day. This week, the proverbs have been from the Republic of Kenya, and they've been in the Swahili language. Do you understand Swahili?
A little.
Good. He's going to give you the Swahili proverb. Let's see if you'll understand it.
This man is baiting you.
This is it. This is an ambush.
Yes, okay. Here we go. Asiekosa hayupo.
Completely clueless.
It's all right. Sister.
I struggled this morning as well.
And then you got it.
You didn't actually struggle.
I wasn't sure.
You're struggling with self-doubt, yet you knew,
Still a struggle.
You knew exactly what the problem meant.
Still a struggle. So, one who doesn't err, one who errs is alive, is still human.
You know, you're actually very right.
Yeah.
You see, the proverb actually says, there is no one who does not make a mistake.
Right. To err is human.
Yes, that's what it says. So you are right.
Thank you.
To err is human. Mausi, what's your interpretation of this?
It is embracing our humanity. We come with strengths and weaknesses, not only in ourselves, but to embrace it in others, and not to be so quick to judge. I think for me, it's that rush to judgment that we all must try to end. Just give each other the benefit of the doubt. Even if it's wrong, it could be a mistake.
Chiti?
You know, this is the beauty of listening to someone's interpretation. You always hear something new. And in many cases, spot on. So yes. But you see, a proverb of this nature exists against a backdrop of the assumption of certain people who find themselves in certain privileged positions that they are better. And that particular notion then lends itself to an attitude where you lash out and treat those who make mistakes or those who don't seem to do what you assume to be right in the most preposterous of ways. You are almost unforgiving. And yet you yourself have your own weaknesses and your own failings.
Indeed.
Yes.
So, Mausi, the Human Rights Watch has released the World Report 2024, which talks about various issues, among them that the Horn of Africa governments have grappled with rampant wartime atrocities and humanitarian crises throughout 2023 with meager international assistance. Unaddressed historical grievances and impunity for serious crimes continue to spur widespread violations against civilians in the region. And you go ahead now to talk about the various conflicts. We'll talk about this report. First, let's define what's the Horn of Africa.
Good question. The way that Africa is defined, the definition is imposed on us by others outside the continent. But when you look at the way the map is drawn, there is that sharp edge towards the east coast of Africa. That's the Horn. It's Djibouti, it's Eritrea, it's Somalia, it's Sudan, it's Ethiopia. But for the context of our report, when we're talking about the Horn and the crisis going on there, we're largely referring to Sudan and Ethiopia. And to some extent Eritrea, because it's been involved in the conflict in Ethiopia.
In Ethiopia as well. So we saw that conflict play out in Ethiopia. And then towards the end of the year as well, we saw the conflict erupt in Sudan and what has happened in those two countries. What's the situation at present with those two conflicts? Are they resolved? Are they ongoing? Are they reducing? Are they escalating?
Let's start with Ethiopia because there is a sense of normalization going on there. But the facts on the ground do not bear that out. The cessation of hostilities agreement in November 2022 has kind of taken hold. The crisis aid of the conflict in northern Ethiopia, that's in Tigray. And so to a large extent, the fighting has ended. However, ongoing human rights abuses by Eritrean forces who are still stationed in Tigray is a huge problem. They continue to carry out extrajudicial and other unlawful killings, sexual violence. They disturb and stop aid from reaching people who are desperately in need of it. That's Tigray. And then you come a little further south. In the Amhara region, in April last year, fighting broke out between Amhara militia called Fano and the federal government. Since then, the situation has escalated. The fighting continues and has showed no signs of abating till now. And so you have those two situations still simmering, and yet the international community has normalized relationship with the Ethiopian government, which is an active party in all of this.
What do you mean Ethiopia. By normalized relations?
And so, for example, I'll give you the quick human rights perspective. There was an international commission of human rights experts set up by the UN Human Rights Council to investigate, monitor, and report and make recommendations on the situation in Tigray. By the last session in September, the mandate of that commission of experts expired, and Ethiopia worked really hard to ensure that it was not renewed. Worked through the African Union members and the other members of the Human Rights Council. Now, what that means, what he has presented is a transitional justice policy. However, on the ground, there is no policy. There has been no accountability for the horrible atrocities that we documented over the course of the conflict itself. And, all of the sanctions that were put in place to force Ethiopia to that point of signing the cessation of hostilities agreement have been largely taken off. And so where do people go from there? Those who have been victimized are still in pain. Those who have been displaced are still out there. And like I said, Eritrea remains there. Ethiopia, whatever transitional justice policy they put in place, is not going to affect Ethiopia. It's an Eritrea. It's another country. And the forces are still in Tigray as we speak.
Why are they still there?
That's a good question. Ethiopia continues to allow it.
Are they officially in
The
Tigray? The
Ethiopian government is very much aware that Eritrean forces are still in there. They have not pushed them out. They have not asked them to leave. They must know, and that means complicity.
When we look at the characterization of conflict, whether it's in the Horn, which there are reservations about how, what you mentioned earlier, how this particular area has been characterized, one, and then secondly, how we continually see conflict unabated for decades in this area. What is different about how this conflict has been reported on and how conflicts in other parts of the world have been reported on to make us now say that there's little attention by the international community in the Horn?
So, the reporting is one thing. I think part of what the Ethiopian government did that made reporting really difficult was one very strong repression of independent journalists. Many were pushed out of the country, directly expelled. Those within the country were stopped from working, arrested. As we speak, many remain in detention. It's not exactly clear whether it's only for journalistic activities that these individuals are under arrest. Many are involved in some politicking. And so for that, we're not exactly sure. But they remain in detention. So there is constant harassment. And the shutdown of the internet, mobile telephone networks was shut down. It was almost impossible to get access to facts on the ground as they happened. Many of us relied on, different devices to reach the people and get the information out of there. Even humanitarian actors were pushed out of the country. Now, elsewhere, even if you don't have physical access, there is some level of remote access. So that's why I said the reporting is one part of it. But where we have also seen the double standards is that the international community made very little effort to ensure that there is a structure for civilian protection. There are people who do not have any skin in this fight. They are caught in between. A lot of vulnerable groups, women, children, older people, people with disabilities, people who really just maybe by the very accident of their birth happen to be from one ethnic group or the other. They are targeted for that simple reason. And there was no buffer. There was no protection for any of them. And like I said earlier, there is still no mechanism for accountability for the abuses and atrocities perpetrated against them. This, the international community has failed to do for the Ethiopian people who were victimized throughout the conflict.
Is it just not another example of how the international community then, and many would say, is excited at the prospects of conflicts remaining in Africa?
I don't know whether the word is excited. Because we as Africans, African people, African governments, we must take responsibility for what we do to ourselves.
Then we can't, if we say that, then it should concern us less whether the international community is involved or not.
But then you're not taking into consideration the unequal power relations between a state who has all of the machinery of power and the use of force against people who are completely unarmed and helpless. Who protects them? That's where there must be. And when I say international community, I'm not just talking about people outside of Africa. I'm talking about the African Union. I'm talking about the sub-regional mechanisms. There is IGAD, the Intergovernmental Development Authority. There is the East African Community. And all of these institutions, plus the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, the most significant human rights organ of the African Union. It started an investigation 2 years into the conflict, mysteriously decided to drop everything. No report was issued. We understand that the Ethiopian government was extremely hostile to its investigators, but still you have an obligation because you have a legal mandate to do this job to protect human rights on the continent. These Ethiopians who were suffering are Africans. Who protects them?
Are you saying that those regional bodies, IGAD, EAC, the AU, took zero action?
I wouldn't say zero.
There was no response. Just speaking to in the case of Ethiopia, are you saying that the African Union did not take any action in the case of Ethiopia?
In action is a broad range. Condemning, publicly calling out, that is some action, and it has its utility at some level. But when it comes to pulling and pushing with some level of coercion, because no one who enjoys power will lay it down willingly or voluntarily. There has to be coercive measures to ensure that those who are helpless in all of this are protected.
Wouldn't you say that the African Union actually took steps to end the conflict?
I wouldn't say so. I think that they tried to have conversations with President Abiy, a lot of which he rebuffed. I think that the African Commission, like I said earlier, set up a commission of inquiry, but it was not allowed to function. The United Nations Human Rights Council eventually got into an agreement with Ethiopia's Human Rights Commission, and they were able to carry out some investigation a lot of it under protestation from the Ethiopian government. They issued a report. The recommendations from that report and from the independent commission of experts set up by the UN Human Rights Council, none of it have been implemented.
Can we say it's work in progress? Look, I'm coming from this point. I'm coming from a point where memory serves me right. The various actors, even within Africa, who are active in trying to bring the two factions to a table. The Abiy and his government and the Tigray People's Liberation Front, and they ended up with conversations about a ceasefire, hostilities, so that you can allow humanitarian access. And this happened because of efforts being made at AU level, at regional level. There were conversations about, okay, let's end the hostilities. This was as a result of conversations that have been shepherded by the international community, countries outside of Ethiopia.
So those are political decisions. And ultimately, you're right, it did help to bring them to that point of ending hostilities eventually. But after much damage and hurt, and the persistent pain of those who have been victimized, that for me is failure. And I'm speaking from a human rights perspective. The right of the ordinary civilians who were caught amid all of this. Not enough has been done to protect them. And that is the cycle of impunity encourages and emboldens those who would also want to perpetrate human rights abuses and violations. And those who are hurt will ultimately find an avenue to retaliate, carry out reprisals, take revenge, and it helps no one that there is no accountability. And that's where we say there is a failure of the international community.
When you say accountability, what form would you have wanted to see it? Let's talk about the entire 2023, when there was a cessation of hostilities in Tigray. What would you have wanted to happen that now brings in the rights of the ordinary civilians who are displaced, whose relatives were killed, whose livelihoods were destroyed by the conflict?
First would be that those who have been displaced are able to safely return. Those who have lost loved ones have their questions answered. What happened to them? This is really critical to those. That's one. And then the other part of it, especially when you look at the Western Tigray zone, that zone, I mean, it's been a zone of contestation between different ethnic groups in Ethiopia for decades. It's nothing new. But the conflict presented an opportunity that gave mostly the Amhara ethnic group an upper hand because they were fighting alongside federal forces. And they were able to push out and continue as we speak to drive out ethnic Tigrayans from Western Tigray. That continues to happen today. There is no accountability. Those who have left, they have nowhere to return to. They have no one taking care of their needs where they are. Many were pushed into Sudan, and we'll come to Sudan in a bit. Yep. Many were pushed into Sudan. Yep. Sudan now is in conflict, and they are being targeted in Sudan. So you have multiple layers of victimization, of abuses that people have no answer for. There is no accountability.
Some would argue that that's sort of, it's not desired, but it's like a natural cause of conflict. That is what happens. That once the warring armed conflict ends, the plight of the citizens just, is sort of forgotten. Not because of the inaction of the international community, even with the action of the international community, unless you're saying that people go in there and, shepherd people getting back home in internal conflict, that this is what happens, Mausi. This is, they're in the process of resettling those that were displaced. They're in the process of getting justice for those that were affected. It's an ongoing process. You
so
seem to be putting an urgent
process that we
timeline.
don't see. It's that process. We need to see a clear commitment and indication that it's happening. Like I said earlier, Eritrean forces remain integral, carrying out these same abuses, extrajudicial killing, other unlawful killings, rape, sexual violence against women and girls. It is continuing. There is no indication that there is a commitment, whether by the national government or the international community. Get Eritreans out. That's first. Let them go back to their country. Why are they still there? So that's not a consequence of the war. There are natural consequences that will take time, but it has to be progressive, and progress needs to be initiated.
And there has to be a roadmap.
That's it.
Let's take a break. We'll continue this conversation shortly. Mausi Shegun is the Executive Director of Human Rights Watch Africa Division. She's here to talk to us about wartime atrocities and humanitarian crises, the repercussions of global inaction in the Horn of Africa conflict. This is what we're discussing. Human Rights Watch released a press release yesterday and a report called World Report 2024, which is highlighting all these issues, global inaction in the Horn. Back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's critical that people pay taxes. But then taxation has to have a limit. When you start overtaxing people beyond certain limit, then this is now we call robbery with violence.
We are all struggling, but we don't show. If you're not doing well, shame on you. But you have to say, I'm broke and I'm struggling. We are not okay until everybody is okay.
We are pretending to have political parties. Why don't we just be honest? And we say, these are the Luyas, these are the Kambas, these are the Kikuyus, and we find ourselves in Kenya.
You know, with politics and leadership, no matter what you do, there will always be a complaint. There will always be the assumption that you're either stealing or you're not doing things right. As a leader, don't fear. If you know you're doing the right thing, you've thought about it, you've got an expert advice, do it, then understand later.
This country, we don't need prayers. Prayers is between you and God. Good governance and thinkers who care about the country and not their stomach.
That's what we need.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Cloudy conditions and sprinkle here and there in Nairobi at 15 with highs of 24, coming down to lows of 15. Nakuru is cloudy at 17 with highs of 26 and we'll see highs of 24. And mostly cloudy Nyeri at 16, and Eldoret is cloudy at 15 going to highs of 23. Mombasa this morning is cloudy at 26 with highs of 31, and Malindi at 28 cloudy going to highs of 32. Kisumu, cloudy conditions at 21 with highs of 26 and lows of 20. While Kakamega at 18 is cloudy with highs of 26, we'll see lows of 18. Kampala with light rain this morning at 20 with highs of 27 and lows of 19, while Dar es Salaam continues with rain this morning at 26 with highs of 30. Out in Johannesburg is 18 and sunny with highs of 26 and lows of 17. And Mogadishu at 25 is sunny with highs of 32, while Addis Ababa will see highs of 25. It's currently sunny at 10. It's clear at 25 in Lagos, going to highs of 33. And Kinshasa at 23 is cloudy with highs of 32 and lows of 23.
Some very nice, mature music.
It really took me back to my days, and I can just feel young again and enjoy the vibes.
Onto Outer Ring, it's coming in from Cabanas and then going towards North Airport Road. So we'll see some movement then on Outer Ring. Jogoo Road busy just past the Makadara train station, and we're getting from Landis out towards Kamkunji at the roundabout with traffic. All right, so let's go see what's happening off of Outer Ring. Kangundo Road is busy. We come through to the Thika Superhighway, and then Survey out towards the Pangani Underpass is already at a standstill. We're looking at the same on Kiambu Road as well as Limuru Road this morning. As you're coming off of Waiaki Way through towards Chiromo, that continues to be busy. And Gong Road has joined the party this morning with heavy traffic coming in from Naivasha Road, getting to that junction at Riara and then heading out towards James Gishu. It's going to be a busy Friday morning. Keep your wits about. Let's talk SpiceFM. KE on X.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Human Rights Watch Africa Division, Mausi Shagun, is our guest. We are talking about the World Report 2024 by Human Rights Watch. Horn of Africa, impunity fueling abuses, civilians bearing the brunt of global inaction on wartime atrocities and humanitarian crisis. We've talked about Ethiopia. Also, Sudan. A lot is unfolding. What's happening in Sudan?
Sudan is still in the throes of the conflict that started now over about 7-8 months ago. We've seen continued fighting in Khartoum. For example, between the Sudan Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces. So, I mean, if you know the history of the transitional government in Sudan, the two leaders of these warring parties were together. The leader and the deputy leader of the transitional government, General Al-Burhan and General Amdallah Dagalo, known as Hemeti, easier to call him Hemeti. Men and their ego. It's an egotistical war, and they are fighting to the last to gain the upper hand. And unfortunately, ordinary Sudanese are caught in the midst of all of this. The essential infrastructure in Khartoum, as we speak, is almost completely destroyed.
What?
Health systems completely gone. Electricity, water, and there's still about 3 million people trapped in there. The Sudan Armed Forces are not allowing humanitarian aid to get in. People are desperate in those locations. And when you talk about Khartoum, you talk about the twin city Omdurman as well. In the areas where the Rapid Support Forces have control, they are, taking over people's homes, raping, pillaging, setting houses on fire, setting properties on fire, and that's Khartoum. Elsewhere in the country, in Darfur in particular, maybe let me zero in on West Darfur. Darfur, as you know, has a history of conflict from 20 years ago. A lot of it remains, again, unaccounted for. Over 200,000 people killed in that conflict. Very little in terms of holding perpetrators to account. And both the Sudan Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces in another iteration then as part of the Janjaweed were very active in that conflict then. So you have history repeating itself in Darfur. Right now, ethnic Masalit people are being targeted by the Rapid Support Forces led by Dagalo, and there are other Arab militia carrying out ethnically targeted killings of these people, forced displacement, pushing people out of their homes. Many Masalit people are right now in Chad as we speak. Some have fled into South Sudan. I think about 7 million people internally and externally displaced with little access to help. It's a really desperate situation.
Are you seeing the international community again here is taking little action?
Now, it's the paralysis of action when it comes to Sudan, I think, is somewhat surprising. The African Union indeed attempted to, sanction them, expelled Sudan from the African Union. But beyond that, the United Nations has devolved responsibility to the African Union, and the African Union in turn devolved it to IGAD.
Yep.
And neither of them have been able to do anything much.
Have been able? I think have been able. I mean, I hear what you're saying. And I have my reservations about interventions by the African Union in Africa for decades in terms of what can be done and what ought to be done and what people are willing, what organizations that have been instituted for things like this to actually do. And I think over time, unfortunately, it's been wanting at best. Because I do feel that there are those who benefit from a situation where Africa is current and constantly in conflict. And that whereas we as Africans and we as the countries that constitute this continent have a responsibility for watching over one another. I think that we have dispelled that responsibility so much so that we are in a state where sometimes we do not even know what is going on. But at the same time, I do feel that there's external play in the conflicts that take place, because there's the recognition that an Africa without conflict is a threat of huge proportions, and that we cannot ignore that kind of intervention.
Or an Africa in turmoil is easy to exploit.
Absolutely.
Because you see, when you talk about external forces, are we saying that on this continent, we ourselves are phenomenal manufacturers of ammunition, warfare gadgets? No, we get them. Somebody gives them to us or somebody sells them to us. Because when you have a prolonged war, somebody's making it possible. So yes, external influences do exist, but of the nefarious variety.
Absolutely.
And if you look at the history of that region has been embroiled in conflict for the longest. It's one conflict after another. There have been more periods of conflict than there have been periods of peace. Now, what does that do to the psyche of the people? See, if you are used to war more than peacetime, what do you think you are inclined towards? Should there be a problem? To have peace or to go to war? Yes.
I think that, to be fair, if you asked ordinary Sudanese, they want peace. They just want to live their lives. Every African, every human being, they just want to live their lives. They are not, majority of people are not interested in politics. The economics of it, yes. What puts food on their table, clothes on their back, the roof over their heads, they care about all of that. It's a small minority that are involved in politics or even having political opinions, right? But you know, when we then talk about, you know, how long the conflicts have been, it's not everyone who is living in Sudan today who experienced the past. There are a lot of young people. This youth bulge that we're talking about is everywhere in Africa. Young people. I mean, Sudan in Africa is one of those countries where they have a very vibrant, highly educated, exposed population. Civil society, the media, professional groups, you saw how they held up against al-Bashir at the end of it and continued to remain on the streets even when the tanks were moving towards them. They organized themselves, whether it was teachers' unions, it was lawyers' unions, it was doctors' unions, journalists, everyone very organized. But now this, you know, what they called these neighborhood groups, resistant committees, as they call them, are gradually becoming the target and being dismantled deliberately because there is a resentment that they are taking power or demanding for power on behalf of people rather than those who have the force of arms.
That's the heart of the matter. Now you tell me, in these regions that we speak of, the people who have held power, are they not people who predominantly have a military background?
Absolutely. So let's take Sudan, for example.
Yes.
The leaders of the two warring brothers.
And the one before?
And the one before that.
Yes.
And the trigger for the current crisis is the fact that there was an intention to put up a timetable that will restore power to civilians.
Yes.
It's about power.
Precisely. And if you have a region where those who have held on to power for the longest time, even when they've removed their military garb and put on civilian clothing, are still military people.
Absolutely.
The likelihood of what we are seeing in this part of our continent is likely to continue because these are people who will fight at the slightest provocation. Civilians don't think like that. They do.
Absolutely. And I would emphasize the point you made earlier about external forces and those who sell arms.
Yes.
They are pitching their tent with one side against the other because of what they stand to gain.
Yes.
And so you're in the case of Sudan, a lot of it is the Gulf countries.
Yes.
It's the United Arab Emirates. It's Saudi Arabia.
It's Qatar.
It's exactly, So you have all of this on one side or the other. Even if those within are willing to come to the table, and there is no willingness as we speak to come to the table. Rather, Hemeti is all over Africa, here in Kenya, red carpet rolled out for him. This is someone that has been credibly accused of carrying out atrocities against his own people. He is not a head of state, but he has a head of state rollout. When he comes visiting, he's done a diplomatic shuttle of about 8 African countries. He's gotten almost the same treatment all the way from the east to Central Africa, Rwanda, South Africa, Djibouti. Talk about it, he's been there. But he would not sit down with the person he's fighting with. So he, on the one hand, is saying it's the international community that can intervene, and without that intervention, we cannot have peace. But whereas the African Union, and I'll come back to what you said earlier, Ndu, the African Union has attempted to mediate, even through IGAD, to bring them to the table. They have not agreed. The Jeddah talks came to nothing. Every time one side hears that the other is attending an event, they denounce it. They will not attend. That's why I said it's about ego. And people are suffering. Now, the African Union has done, I think, what it can, but there is a lack of ability. There is a lack of capacity. Now, the one good thing that I think has happened recently, and I hope it becomes operationalized, that in December last year, the UN the UN Security Council passed a resolution to provide support to standing forces, including one for the African Union. I think that the African Union should take advantage of that and get the support. African countries are poor. They don't have enough to handle their political, economic, social. Many. There are some that are not poor. There are some that are not. But they are few. They are in the minority. We have, 58 countries in Africa? What percentage of that has enough to sustain life within their own borders, talk less of going next door or contribute? They don't even contribute their dues to the African Union.
And yet, they have millionaires and they have billionaires.
Private individuals, maybe with access with
political leaders,
presidents. So corruption. Corruption is another.
And this is the thing,
conversation,
because we're talking about poor African countries who go to UNGA assemblies and spend $25,000 a night and
take
put it
an
all
entourage
over
of
social
600
media
people
and take 50. And we have other countries in Africa who take 1,500 people to COP in Dubai.
Yeah.
So when we hear things like a phrase you used, small minorities who are perpetuating conflict that in a normal situation could be shut down. And that's what I'm saying, that we do not see the application of willingness and implementation in the resolve of some of these things. And we continue to use those buzzwords like small minorities who are the ones who are perpetuating this conflict, and the government who has the machinery, whether it is in will or actual infrastructure, kind of flirting with the issue of maybe we can resolve it when we can. And then we fall back on things like we don't have enough money or we don't have enough in terms of resources. But those that are available are not being employed. And that's one of my major issues with things like this. You study these conflicts, you see the way in which they develop over time. Is it possible that for decades, 5, 6 decades, that we see the nature of conflict not changing in its nature, but that the perpetuation of it continues and that it is okay? For me, it's absolutely, it's anathema.
It's ludicrous.
That we see it continue like this and we fall back on things like small minority or inadequate resource. It cannot be.
The small minority are those who have access to that state machinery and the power of coercion. So you cannot divorce that small minority from the government you speak about. It's the monopoly of the use of force and power. Look at the conflict. There is not one conflict that the government forces are not involved. And that's what prolongs it. Whether you look at the Sahel, you're looking at the armed Islamist insurgencies, they are perpetrated because, one, people at some point, and it's all linked, people at some point get tired of the corruption, the neglect, the deliberate impoverishment of their communities, and look for a means of seizing some of that violence for themselves. And say the language that the government understands is the language of violence. Whether it's religion defined, some social cause, they will take up arms. And what is the government response? They round up everyone in the vicinity, thereby creating and perpetuating the narrative of grievance and of victimization. And so when people internalize that, they become the enemies of the state that's supposed to protect them. And so you have it, and like you said, there are cycles that we understand so well. The triggers are obvious. The early warnings are there, completely ignored, because again, it is the access to that coercive power that people want to protect by all means. They are not separate from each other. It's not one group of people somewhere and the government elsewhere. It's all interwoven.
And you know, I'm back to the legacy and the tyranny of history. If that is what has been a consistent norm, interspersed with peace in between, the likelihood of it taking force and spiraling is always high. And as you say correctly, so long as that minority, and that's why the intelligentsia that you speak of in a place like Sudan understand this, because you live with it, and they know until we actually have an absolute civilian rule, this thing will never end.
It will never.
I've seen a comment here, and I think I agree with it 100%, that when we talk about conflict, we can't run away from talking about conflict without talking about the business and the commercialization of conflict, especially on the continent. Number two, I don't agree that the majority of African countries are poor. I think that African countries, to a large extent, are poorly managed. The poor management of resources, the poor implementation of certain things that actually can bring about a certain element of development that we do not see. And I think it is the management of processes that fails largely. And because of that, we continue to see this. Is it possible to be involved, to be in a country without the say-so of the citizens, or one or two? CT gives us an example here about the slave trade having flourished the way it did, not because people came in and did it, but that there was somebody on the ground who was facilitating it.
A lot of it was also conflict-driven. There was conflict between communities, and you know, slave taking and hostage taking has been part of historical humanity forever. And so when during the wars in Africa, when people, my enemy, if I fight them today, they can become stronger tomorrow. So why don't I sell off some of them and make something out of it? So it's the way that we generate and deal with conflict. And you talked about the war economy. It's always
just right there. Before, it was, one could even argue, a cultural process where people went to war, took slaves, intermarried to bring about peace. When the commercial element came in, now it spurred more conflict because it enabled you to have more merchandise to sell. The merchandise here, unfortunately, were human beings. Yes. So what we're seeing is just a modern day version of the same thing.
Absolutely.
Well, see, does this report look at the reasons for the inaction?
We delve into a lot of it. Like I mentioned earlier, I feel, we believe that there is some level of inability on the part of the African Union. They have limited resources, to be honest. I also mentioned the African Commission of Human and People's Rights. I mean, really excellent people in their commissioners who are doing their best with very little or no resources at all. And so, you know, getting them access to where the money is, the support is, the funds are, whether we're talking in terms of, you know, the tools for forces who can go in. Listen, civilians, that's the critical thing in any war. And that's why there are laws of war. The laws of war say you must avoid indiscriminate or deliberate targeting of civilian populations, civilian infrastructure. All of these are thrown out. There is a new UN declaration, a political declaration about avoiding the use of explosives in populated places. 83 countries across the world have signed it. Just 10 in Africa, but you can be sure none of these countries who are in war are signing up to it. They are using explosive weapons in populated places in Sudan as we speak. In Khartoum, like I said, most of it has been bombed out. They're using drones. A lot of it supplied by the United Arab Emirates. That's the information that we're getting. And so some of the mechanisms that can help, are
lacking.
Including the genocide conventions, they like I said, all of the laws of war, and we have absolutely amazing legal infrastructure here in Africa to ensure that those things do not happen. But what happens? Implementation. That's the problem.
So structurally, things are in place.
There are.
But then there's a lack of capacity.
Lack of capacity and lack of willingness to implement.
What leads to that lack of capacity?
The lack of capacity is access to resources.
Who has no access to resources?
The African Union.
Why?
It goes capping. That's a good question for the union to so, like I said, even members do not pay their dues. Where is it supposed to manufacture the resources from? So it's going outside of Africa to enlist aid when there are resources within Africa that could be applied to the use of this institution set up by Africans for Africans.
Therein lies the problem, because you've just touched on the leadership of these African countries. Again, let me go back to my earlier statement. How is it that all these leaders are multi-dollar millionaire or billionaires, and yet you're saying they cannot pay these dues?
They don't.
Precisely. The poverty of spirit, it bothers me. How is it that the African ascends to leadership and somehow doesn't seem to understand that his security lies in the welfare of his people? It seems to, they ascend, they talk about it as though they understand it, and then they ascend, and then they negate that entire conversation with their actions. How? Can someone explain this to me?
Can I?
Yes.
Ego. Male ego.
Why is it only in Africa?
It's everywhere else, but there are mechanisms to check it. What we don't have are the checks. Europe has NATO. The threat of NATO, or even the US, because the US is aligned with NATO. Although, Russia has called their bluff on Ukraine, but it is a check that works for most. And then they have the institutions that they respect. We don't respect our institutions. A lot of the institutions that we have and the mechanisms we have are copycat institutions and mechanisms. We don't believe in them. We don't support them. We don't fund them. That's the problem.
What would you like to see?
I would like to see an Africa that cares enough about its people to step in when they are being bullied, because all of this fighting, all of these individuals who are fighting themselves, and as they say, the African proverb says, when the elephant fights, it's the grass that suffers, and they have no protection. We would like to see better protections for African civilians caught amidst this conflict. Protection and then justice. For me, justice is key. Justice is key to the future. It's looking back, but it's key to the future, to ensuring that this does not continue to happen. So ensuring that there is accountability for what has happened and ensuring that civilians are protected. Those are the two key things we'd like to see happen.
Mausi, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Mausi Shegu is the Executive Director at Human Rights Watch Africa Division. We've been talking about wartime atrocities and humanitarian crisis, repercussions of global inaction in the Horn of Africa, conflict out of a report released yesterday by the Human Rights Watch called
The World Report.
World Report 2024. Keep it here for more conversations in the next hour. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life
morning, this is Newswire. Dennis Aseto. The Law Society of Kenya has established a legal team to review possible violations of the Constitution by President William Ruto in the wake of the latter's sustained attacks against the judiciary and decisions of the court. LSK President Eric Theuri said the Law Society will mobilize support from all quarters, including religious leaders and civil society, to force the president to respect the rule of law or face impeachment for gross violation of the Constitution. Theuri is eyeing the LSK representative to the Judicial Service Commission post in the upcoming elections, told the president that judicial authority was no longer under the direction of any persons.
The Constitution allows us to approach the High Court when there is a threat to violation of the Constitution to consider whether the current scenario raises enough threats of violation of the Constitution for us to move to court and seek a declaration that the President has violated the Constitution. As you are all aware, one of the reasons or one of the grounds for impeachment is violation of the Constitution. The rule of man died with the old Constitution, and that 14 years down the line we will not allow a rollback to those days when a president was autocratic and carried himself as if he is above the law.
The government will intensify its focus on the last mile road connectivity to boost access to resources and services. President William Ruto said more funds will be put in the upgrading of roads in a move that will also spur trade at the grassroots. He said better roads will guarantee farmers, especially of fresh produce, better income. He noted that the last mile connectivity that Kenya Rural Roads Authority is driving will ensure that no part of the country is left behind. There is hope for thousands of Kenyans who had been denied essential medical services such as dialysis after equipment procured under the Medical Equipment Services Scheme broke down. These as governors and the Ministry of Health finally agreed to extend the period of usage of the medical equipment services by another 6 months. In a meeting chaired by Health Cabinet Secretary Wafula Nakhumicha and Council of Governors Chair Ann Waiguru, the parties brokered a deal to have counties pay half the amount that will be charged to operate the service and service the machines, while the national government pays the other half. And police in Narok Town arrested 6 people protesting the murder of a land surveyor who was killed outside his home by unknown persons. The protesters, angered by the murder of land surveyor Dixon in Kamasai, barricaded the busy Narok Bomet Road and engaged police in running battles. They cited widespread insecurity in the region, attributing it to the perceived lack of police action against criminals. The protesters subsequently gave police a 12-hour ultimatum to unearth Nkamai's killer.
Na ningetaka kuomba the inspector of police, polisi ambao wako Narok, wamekaa Narok kwa zaidi ya miaka 20. Hapa wamezoeana na watu.
Ila allegation ambayo inaeneswa kwamba one community is being targeted, that is not the case. This is one case ambayo ilifanyika kwa ghafla. Tunajua marehemu ni surveyor na ana handle issues za mashamba. Land issues in Narok are very emotive. So lazima tipa tujue hao watu ambao walimngojea na kumuua ni maneno ya shamba ama ni mambo mengine.
Tunataka kuambia security team all Narok ya kwamba sisi tumelia kwa muda na we need kazi ifanywe once and for all.
With the global surge in the use of artificial intelligence tools, disinformation and misinformation are considered one of the top global risks for 2024. In its 2024 Global Risks Report, the World Economic Forum has ranked AI-generated disinformation and misinformation as one of the negative, most severe global risks anticipated over the next 2 years. Surveyed in September 2023, 53% of respondents said AI-generated misinformation and disinformation is likely to present a material crisis on a global scale in 2024. Now, the United Nations Security Council has approved a resolution calling on Yemen's Houthi rebel group to cease its brazen attack in the Red Sea as the United States and Britain hinted at military strikes. The warnings come as the Iran-backed militants continues a weeks-long campaign to launch drones and missiles at vessels in the commercially vital shipping lane, which they say are revenge against Israel for its military campaign in Gaza. The UN Security Council vote was 11 in favor, 0 against, and 4 abstentions, including Russia and China. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, so what are we looking at with traffic this morning? Coming around about past 8 o'clock, it's heavy on Gong Road. Getting out towards Riara Road, coming in from Naivasha Road as well, is very busy. On the Thika Superhighway, it's busy as well. Coming in from Kiambu Road as well as Limuru Road today. Waiaki Way also starting to pile up quite some as you get into the city. So, into traffic hour, that's where we are, and traffic in different parts from here and there. Keeping an eye on things. How about we talk on SpiceFM KE on X and keep things moving this morning?
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room. The
7
only
minutes after
way
8,
to
our conversations continue. In this next hour, we are joined by Wilson Sosion, who is a former Secretary General of the Kenya National Union of Teachers, who is, last time you were here, you told us you're an advisor of the Kenya Kwanza government.
I'm not an advisor of Kenya Kwanza.
What are you?
I'm an insider of Kenya Kwanza and Chief Administrative Secretary, Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife.
You're a CS?
Yes.
I thought those ones were not...
Those are political.
Okay.
Those are political.
You'll tell us shortly about it. First, let's welcome you.
That's not what I came for.
Let's welcome you by talking about school and school fees. Schools are opening, Wilson, and school fees is a big issue. Kiwi has been running a campaign. They're saying, if you come and buy a Kiwi, you get into a draw and you stand a chance of winning 35,000 shillings worth of school fees. That is either for a child that you choose, your child, or any child that you'd like to sponsor.
So imagine that, whereby there's a whole list of stuff that you have to do when schools are starting, and we say, sometimes it's really tough to be able to get through that whole list. Kiwi says, okay, how about we handle that? Go in, buy a tin of Kiwi today, and you dial the number *459 *5#, put in the code, airtime data yours immediately. Then you enter into a draw. Every week, 4 people, 35,000 shillings. It's a big chunk that can be taken out, if not paid for school fees completely for a term. And so you think about that, buy Kiwi today. It can be you, it can be somebody else. School fees paid, we step up, we shine.
Yes. If you're in Nairobi, Mombasa, Nakuru, Naivasha, Kisumu, Eldoret, have you come across this brand new taxi app? It's called what?
Maramoja taxi.
Have you seen those taxis? They are all over in those cities. Nakuru, Nairobi, Naivasha, Kisumu, Eldoret, Mombasa. If you have Maramoja taxi, you are definitely then have the cheapest taxi hailing app and the one that pays the drivers the most. And also, in addition to that, there's the SOS button, which is an important thing in the city.
Well, in the event of emergency, and emergencies by their very nature don't tell in advance that they're coming. That's why they're an emergency. You suddenly find you have a problem of whatever nature. The emergency button comes in handy because then it provides you not only with a safety net, but a safety measure where at the depression of that button, within the shortest possible time, you will get assistance. You will get a phone call. You will be asked what it is. If they can't get through, your location will be determined. Because the moment you hail an app, a cab rather, they have an idea of where you are because of the cab. And they will find you.
Exactly. So it's a very important one. Many times, maybe there's an emergency while you are in the cab, or there's an emergency while you're not in the cab. They say, use the SOS button. Wilson Sosion, Chief Administrative Secretary. That's the Ministry of Tourism, isn't it?
And Wildlife.
and tourism and wildlife.
For the time being. All those other things are political.
Hey, are you getting a salary, or are you working for free?
Serving the nation, you don't need to be paid.
But are you getting
this country?
But are you getting paid?
Paid or not? We are not paid. That's a fact.
CASs are not being paid.
They're not paid.
But you report to office.
We don't necessarily need to report to office. We can work. Am I not working here now? Oh. Am I in office? Mm-hmm. We function. Mm-hmm. You function everywhere. You don't need to be in an office. Yeah. And of course, we are law-abiding. There are those who have gone to court. We want to abide by those particular orders. But that doesn't stop us from thinking and building the nation. We'll continue doing so.
Okay.
Until when such matters are dispensed.
Okay.
Yes.
To welcome you to the conversation, CT has the day's proverb. This week's proverbs are from the Republic of Kenya. It's in Kiswahili. So listen to the proverb, Wilson. Then you give us your English translation of that proverb, and then you give us your interpretation of it.
Asiyekosa hayupo.
These are proverbs from Kenya. Asiyekosa
hayupo.
Hayupo.
Asiyekosa hayupo. Huh?
In English?
It means if you are not present, you are absent. You you can't be present when you are absent. So you are absent.
So here you've basically translated kukosa by being missing.
Yes, and
absent,
and it's not wrong.
If you're absent, how can you commit mistake? Kamakosa is mistakes, right?
No, you're right. You're right. But on the other hand,
how can you blame me over mistakes when I'm absent in the first place? You can't accuse me in absentia. I can't be guilty in absentia. Yeah.
Is this not the beauty of interpretation?
Right? Yeah. But of course, I'm not a linguist. I'm a scientist myself by training and operations. Yeah.
Sawa. Let's talk about the science of exams.
Yes.
All right. The KCSE results were released earlier this week. KCPE results were released in December, and there have been very many conversations that take place afterwards. Okay. Yes. For example, today there's a story about 2 schools in Nyanza where students are up in arms because they received a D grade. Students and teachers at Oruba Boys in Migori and Kowidi Secondary School in Homa Bay suspect foul play, and they say the results are incorrect. Yesterday, Oruba students took to the streets to protest, saying it's implausible for 73 out of 75 students to score a D. They marched to the county education offices demanding answers, claiming the results do not accurately reflect their capabilities. We want our results, according to Alois Otieno, one of the students. They say they consistently performed well in the internal and regional exams, making KCSE results surprising. Some mentioned being expelled from home, and they're now in search of their accurate results. They're saying, look, I went home with this result. My parents are like, how can you bring a D here? Surely, what happened to you? Kowidi Mixed Secondary School, all 30 candidates achieved an E grade in mathematics, scored a D in KCSE exams. All. Yesterday, some of these students, the principal of this school said they intend to file a complaint with the Kenya National Examination Council. We saw the same thing happening in KCPE, okay? Where this is about how is it possible that all these students can score this much. There was another story of a school, I'm not I don't remember quite clearly which county it is. I think Wasingishu or Elgeyo Marakwet, one of those, where students and teachers, students and parents are up in arms saying this school has been performing dismally over the last 7 years. Each year, we are getting more and more D's and E's. This particular exam, only one person got a D+. The rest got D, D-, E. More than 70 students, year in, year out. And they were accusing the school principal of being absent. They say this man is hardly ever here in the school. So the school basically is just like operating on free fall. Well, what are these things saying about the exams and the education system?
No, for me, naturally, I really expect this type of reactions right across. I expect, and they're natural and they're genuine. asking questions is the right thing, and people seeking for their rights is the right thing. And we've run exams simply is a mirror of how a curriculum has been implemented, basically. If you have implemented it well, it will be indicated with the exams. If you have not implemented, you have been doing other things, thinking you are doing the right thing, it will still be indicated in terms of those massive failures. It's simply where a curriculum has not been effectively implemented. And we have many schools all over the country, and the curriculum implementation is different. School cultures are different. We have an open curriculum. But then, to ensure that we have uniform national standards and credible performance that students will be able to score based on the optimal efforts of their potential, and in measurement and evaluations standards all over the world, any examination should always take what you call a normal curve, should give a normal curve. That is when you know you've managed all variables effectively and in a good way. You'll always have that normal curve. When you have negatively skewed, pointing to the left, that is, you have more A's at the end and very few E's, it means that exam is not reliable. And when you have positively skewed, pointing to the right, and you have more failures, it means that exam is not reliable. And if we look at, I'm speaking professionally. If we look at the analysis of KCSE, if you were to draw a curve, it would be pointing to the right. And you begin with 48,000 E's, add plus another 165,000 D's, add plus another 155,000 D minuses. That gives you a total of about 400,000. Out of
899.
Yes. You look at it. Let's talk numbers. And when you go to the other end, the A's are 1,200. So if you draw that curve, it's positively skewed. It is not a good curve for Kenya. It is not. That's a fact. And the education experts and the sector must reason that why do we have this? And I think we've had this problem historically over time. We've not managed our education system professionally. We've managed education system emotionally, politically, and in using cartels. And if I look at what is, and please allow me to conclude my own personal analysis as an insider who has worked in the sector for a long time. The way we managed exams right from 2016, we allowed first before 2016 too much cheating in exams because we would watch examination papers in the media in the evening and the same papers are done the next day. I think that was height of madness. That when some intervention needed to have been done. It was done. But we did too much. We destroyed children. We did not adopt and customize international standards of measurements and evaluation. That is, moderating exams in a proper way. So we ended up again. If you look at transition, C+ and above in 2015, 265,000 from that cohort scored C+ and above. But with these measures, where again, NEC and the ministry removed moderation of raw grades, because raw marks mean nothing until they are compared with others and graded and moderated. That is according to international standards of measurement and evaluation. The raw grades were graded and all subjects were graded using the same grading system. Maths is not the same as physics, is not the same as chemistry. They can never be the same. That is a mistake that was made, to use uniform grading system. What was the outcome? 88,000 candidates scoring C+ and above. Now then the question begs, out of the 600 and something thousand, where do you take the rest? You create wastage. Exams are not meant to create wastage. Exams are supposed to facilitate transition to the next level. And if need be, facilitate 100%. That's the main purpose of exams. They're not supposed to be used to condemn learners. And I think we've perfected that culture of condemning learners. Yep. And I think the media has been a victim. It runs away with such stories. Of course, negative things is always news, you know, you my guys. And how students have failed is what is reported and all these negative things. So the negative stories around exams is what has been perfected over time. And that largely depended on the demeanor and attitude of the national administration at that time. And which of course, I would say it cared little about education and exams. That brings me to something. When you see, for 7 years, you talk of 7 years, we are in 2023. So this 7 years goes back up to when? 2016.
We're in 2024.
Yes. Poor performances 2016, 2017, 2018.
19,
was 20. There a government that was in place, that existed to check all this? Yes, there was. Did it check? No. It slept on the job. If you go to the ministry right now, this is a fact. Quality assurance and standards department is dead. When it is dead, then
what do you mean dead?
It's dysfunctional. It does not function. We don't have personnel. We don't have programs. Because I would ask you, Latiff, what would naturally happen, like Oruba Secondary School, when they come out, the most natural thing that the ministry will do is to deploy quality assurance and standards personnel to go and conduct a quality assurance program in the school. Check how many teachers, the teaching, the infrastructure, and all that. Yep. And you generate a professional report. We don't do that. Every school must be quality assured every year and continuously.
So
you can't mount education without it's what we call inspection.
Are you saying
in other
education
countries
is not being taken seriously at this point?
The previous national administrations did not invest in the quality assurance and standards section of the ministry. And that even right now, if you were to mobilize, there are no personnel, there are no programs, there are no infrastructure like vehicles. Yep. And those of us, when I see my elder here, I'm sure you studied in Kenya and you know what was called
at least education.
What was called
he's a teacher.
Inspection of schools.
I'm a teacher.
You must inspect a school.
Yep.
And in fact, in terms of the law, an inspector can walk to a school anytime. There are no limitations.
And sit in a classroom.
Yes. That's the rule.
We used to have that.
And who are the inspectors? The best of teachers in the teaching service are recruited to the inspectorate section. And those are the ones who quality assure. So that you don't wait for results in 2023 and you begin seeing a school that is getting this throughout. It is possible now to happen because there has been no quality assurance. So whom do you blame? If you don't quality assure schools, and you must quality assure every school and give back their report.
Can you explain to us?
You must also quality assure every county, every administrative unit, and give their general reports. We must have a national report on quality assurance. And I remember during the time of Moi, I think Moi as a president and with a strong background of teaching, knew how these things were done. And any time when it needed a report, quality assurance and standard report, it would be given by the chief inspector of schools, not the minister.
Please explain this quality. It's very important because we cannot gloss over it. You talk about quality assurance, and there's definitely a link between that and what the outcomes.
Correct.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Now, what ought to happen, please, and let's just, if you can give us concise steps between what is supposed to happen that will guarantee, because we're not talking about exams, we're talking about the learning process, isn't it?
Correct, yeah.
What should happen between this quality assurance and the outcomes that we see, not the grade that you get, but that the learning you acquire. Yes.
The purpose of the quality assurance and standard in all education systems and systems that work is to ensure that the curriculum is effectively implemented.
Okay.
And learning properly administered. And that will lead to desired outcomes. And the outcomes if we were to grade exam in a properly quality assured education system, it will give a normal curve. You'll have some few students scoring E and almost equal numbers scoring A. So we would expect, if I can get back to the figures of the yesteryears, the number of A's at some point were about 3,000. And the number of E's were 10,000. Yeah, which you could see they almost not normal, not really normal, but at least
you could
the
compare
gap
to each other.
Could compare.
Okay.
And then currently, you now have 48,000 E's
and 1,000 A's.
It's a problem. For those of us who are experts in measurement and evaluation and statistics, you know this one now is a problem. And I've said this curve in Kenya is a bad curve for the country. Way forward. Because I think that is what we need.
Absolutely.
Let us sober up. Let us diagnose our sector. Let our education sector be run professionally on the best international practices and restructure the administration of the ministry. And all what we need is what we call competent leadership. Competent.
At the ministry.
Once you have a competent leader at the ministry, all shall work. I remember the time of Saitoti. Saitoti would visit almost every county for education days. There were education days where these are forums where people, you reward the best and then discuss the gaps of that particular region or that particular school.
Then.
Yes. Yeah, because we must discuss education and we must meet to discuss education. We must meet to celebrate those who have done well and reward them. And during that period of Saitote, a lot went, and that is when we were implementing the free primary education. The success of free education can be dated back to the time when Saitote really did a lot of work to implement many programs. What we need to do is to run the ministry professional.
Who runs the ministry?
It's government. It's government. And the bad practices that had been implemented. So who killed the quality assurance and standard? When you see a minister, let me give you an example. When you see a minister visiting schools and trying to perform the work of quality assurance himself as a minister, when you see a minister doing the procurement work of construction of classrooms in a school, then there is something wrong. The minister can never, as per practices all over the world, can never interfere with the work of quality assurance. It's an independent entity. It should be independent. It should operate independently and professionally with qualified personnel and infrastructure. That is what we are lacking. And I've told the CS as much, and we've advised government, and I think there's a process to recruit new personnel, but this process cannot delay. The more it delays, then we'll be waiting for another curve next year, and we'll be waiting for more complaints. And there is no shortcut. You know, this is very empirical. If you want quality outcomes, you must invest in the right and relevant inputs. So I think investment and revamping quality assurance and standard and deploying the best teachers to run that department. Once that is done, then we'll see the changes gradually.
When did this stop?
It's not going to be an instant.
When did this stop and why? Because, there must have been a reason. People who
I've been the Secretary General of KNUT for over the years. Latiff.
The people who are in the leadership of the teachers' unions, the people who are in the leadership of the education ministry.
Latiff, let me explain. You've asked a question. I've been the Secretary General of KNUT for a long time. And I raised my reservations over quite a number of things, including the quality assurance. There has been a capture of the ministry by cartels, and in that process, there has not been open avenues of listening to the views of the people of Kenya. And when we were writing the Constitution of Kenya 2010, if you look at the Basic Education Act, it recommends the creation of Education Standards and Quality Assurance Council, ESCAC. I can ask my elder here to go and consult that act. Has that body been constituted? It's not established to date. Why? Because successive ministers have fought off completely. Why? Yes. because thinking of it will not be easy to control and to do it. And in that process, we have literally killed the quality assurance program at the ministry. That's a fact. That's a revealing fact. And I've discussed this with Machogu. I don't hide. We've discussed this and we've agreed. And there is no shortcut. That department must be re-established and personnel recruited. And that is not going to give results this year. It is not going to give results next year. It is a process to make it work. Because to jumpstart it to work, it is not going to be easy. So we are not yet out of the woods. The mess at the ministry and the personalization of the ministry was way out of this world. And as I've asked you, we were all in Kenya. We saw ministers visiting schools, trying to supervise construction. Tell me, can a minister, even if he's a magician or an angel, visit all the 30,000 schools in Kenya? You simply lead and you delegate and get systems working. And this is what we need to have. Professionalize the ministry, get the systems working. Once we do that, then we'll be able to see this change. Now, moving forward as interim treatment measures.
Let's take a break and then we
some of these schools where complaints have been raised, it's a simple thing. Deploy quality assurance people and you'll be able to get the real picture and real report. Number 2, strengthen the school audit system because that is where you regulate the utility of the inputs and the resources that come from government. We already have optimum deployment of resources in terms of funding to schools in Kenya compared to many countries. I was in Kiharu constituency yesterday, and you can see in Kiharu the leadership from the Member of Parliament and organizing school resources and directly organizing schools. It's already making a difference. Parents can only pay 1,000 shillings in day secondary schools, and the rest is done through CDF and other mobilized resources. And learners are learning. And the day schools in Kiharu constituency are delivering and posting good results. That is good work. That is collaboration between the political leadership, which is competent, which is focused, and also the professionals, the education leadership. And you can see the connection between parents and also the political leadership. So these are some of the interacting factors that need to be looked into.
We'll be back shortly. 27 minutes to 9. Wilson Sossion is the former Secretary General of the Kenya National Union of Teachers. He says he is serving the country as a Chief Administrative Secretary.
And one of the exemplary teachers in this country. If you visited my school, I left my standards with A's. So I have a story.
We are talking about the quality of education in this country. This results for last year's KCSE, 48,000 E's, 165,000 D's. Is it D's or D minus, Wilson? 155,000 D minus. Those are very many D's and E's. Compare that to just about 1,000 A's and 200,000 who scored C plus and above.
And that is massive wastage.
Is a massive wastage of the C minuses and below. What is the issue? What needs to be done? We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people, and we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing politics of conmanship, and even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. And hii mambo utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 17, highs of 24, and we'll see highs of 26, and a mostly cloudy Nakuru at 19. It's 17 degrees and mostly cloudy with a bit of a sprinkle in Nyeri, highs of 25, and Eldoret is cloudy at 16 with highs of 23. Mombasa cloudy at 23 with highs of 32, and it's partly sunny at 29. In Malindi going to highs of 32. Kisumu this morning is cloudy at 22 with highs of 27, and we'll see highs of 26 in a mostly cloudy Kakamega currently at 21. Out in Kampala, the rain continues, going to highs of 28, and we'll see highs of 31 in a cloudy Dar es Salaam at 25. Johannesburg is sunny at 20 with highs of 26, while into Mogadishu at 28, it's sunny conditions to highs of 32. Addis Ababa is sunny at 14 with highs of 25 and lows of 11, while Lagos is clear at 25. We'll see highs of 33, and Kinshasa will see highs of 32. It's currently mostly cloudy at 23.
Love SpiceFM because of one, the music.
The playlist is good. Spice.
You played the best music.
More of the classics and the hits you love. We are Spice FM.
Okay, so traffic ebbing and flowing this morning. We had a few bumper-to-bumper situations coming off Thika Superhighway right around Survey because of the underpass as you get towards Pangani. But you're coming in from Kiambu Road, you should be all right. And Limu Road, traffic is starting to phase out here. Most parts of the city, actually, we'll see some outbound traffic. But apart from that, it looks like Friday morning will not be too crazy. We're going to keep an eye on things, and we'll talk through the morning on Spice FM, KE on X.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Our conversation continues with Wilson Sosion, 23 minutes to 9, talking about education system in the country and the education sector. You say leadership at the helm of the education ministry is important. And I was asking you, who's in the leadership of the ministry? It can't just be this cabinet secretary.
Yeah, leadership is a very extensive term. And even if you have a competent minister and you have weak leadership across up to the school level, there is little that you are going to achieve. Funding and leadership, adequate funding and leadership, but we don't have any problem with funding. It's adequate. And then the issue then is leadership. You know, you can't expect president at State House to be the one micromanaging and running the ministry. It must be run professionally. And when you have good leadership across in all learning institutions, because now let's forget about the ministry, because a leader, the ministry will come and go. It's periodic and it's basically policy. In fact, as we are discussing this, there are schools that have done well. Why? Leadership. I've seen schools where the entire school scores C+ and above. They're all admitted. But when you get down to the school, there are three things they've done. Three variables of quality education. They've mounted serious quality implementation without supervision from the ministry. Yeah, and in fact, quality assurance may not even support certain schools. Some schools propel and move on their own because of leadership, school leadership. And this reminds me of a man called Geoffrey Griffiths of Staré, and he said, to be our teachers, for them to do well, do they have the heart to give their whole life and the whole commitment for the students? So that is the character of school leadership.
On that note, allow me to interrupt you. On that note, because you talk about the quality of leadership at the school level, then you're talking about the individual teachers who've been promoted to become heads, to become principals, to become senior principals, and their background, and those that work below
leadership
them.
Is about coordinating.
Do we have the teachers with the heart?
Now, if the quality assurance system collapsed, who will generate reports about individual performance of teachers? Because it's from the quality assurance and standards report that you are able to identify the best leaders.
Let me augment what he's saying.
When you have a general breakdown in systems, then the outcome will be scary. Even angels would weep. Corrupt individuals will find their ways to the top.
You see, these inspectors,
you buy your promotions.
It was not just general. There would be people who would inspect the sciences. They would inspect the humanities. These are people who, as he said, they had been promoted because they themselves had been classroom teachers. So
and they were excelling.
Yes, they taught these subjects. So they were not evaluating something they didn't know. They were evaluating something they had done themselves. So they knew exactly what is expected.
So there was
then Latiff, then the question begs, what is guiding the appointment of school leaders in Kenya if we don't have authentic quality assurance reports that will give detailed performance of the individuals being appointed?
Can you answer that question?
I think,
do you know what's guiding the appointment of school heads?
The problem we have in Kenya is incompetent leadership, self-interest and corruption, and it is everywhere. So education is not an exception. The president said the other day, we have corruption in judiciary. It's true. We have corruption in education sector. It is true. We have corruption even in the media. You agree? It's true. It's everywhere.
We have corruption in the executive. It is true.
It is true.
Yes.
So it's all of us. We must tell ourselves the truth that this is a complex. The indicators we are seeing are simply indicators of a complex culture of incompetencies, incompetent leadership, self-interest, establishment of cartels. I fought cartels, Latiff, at the ministry so badly. And so badly.
What are these cartels? What do they do?
Of course, when you talk of this review of curriculum, there are interest of book publishers, there are interest of foreigners who want to control the curriculum and determine what you are doing. The Bill Gates are busy all over dictating on the third world what curriculum to take. Those are cartels, and we gleefully.
I can see the direct
business interest.
The book
Let me tell you, the frontier globally, because I campaign globally also for quality public education. The new business frontier in the world, according to the business interest, is education. It is worth over $10 trillion. Wow. So you must disorganize education programs all over the world to create business flagships. Like when the laptop program was brought in Kenya, and you were told, oh, our children will be computer wizards, whatnot, and all that. And then I asked that question, and I'm on record having questioned that particular policy. That was this an urgent need at the ministry? And did you consult the stakeholders before you casted it as a government policy? And I questioned, and Uhuru Kenyatta said, no, Socio hates my government, he's fighting I was not fighting, I was helping. Eventually that program collapsed. Whose was it? Whose really was it? If it is not for the global business interests who take advantage when you are engaged in general elections. So essentially what we need to do is to surgically diagnose all sectors of our country, and particularly within the sector of education. What are the excesses that we got, the unnecessary programs that were injected into the system and driven by cartels? And these cartels will even, like the Presidential Working Party report, some wanted to control and determine the output. And you will see some of the commissions, the members of our commission in 2012 are the same ones in 2018, will be the same ones in 2032. These cartels are there forever, and they transcend regimes. And this we have told the president, if you don't crack on these cartels and these corrupt interests, then this country will not move forward. And I think the president is very keen on that. So for education sector, it will really have to change. And lots of things will have to be done. And when you look at what is happening within the school system, like the schools that are performing, let us not talk about those who are not performing. Those who are not performing, they have not met the minimum standards in terms of implementing curriculum and investing their inputs. There are three things to get quality education. And we want quality public education in Kenya. And we've made several gains from the social world in advocating and campaigning. Right from 2003, I've been right at the center. And we've been campaigning for government to fund. And Kenya has done very well with 6% of GDP being to education and at least 28% of the overall budget. It meets the UNESCO standards. And we can see very many people have very many institutions have interest in education. Count the government. You can see they're rolling out scholarships, the banks and the rest.
The student who is in our education system.
But now the problem that we have is that two things. Other than quality assurance collapsing, the school audit system also has collapsed. We are not able to audit and see the value for the money that we are getting through the schools. And how do we synergize all these resources until it is fully utilized, like the way it is being done in Kiharu, until only a secondary school student pays 1,000
a term.
Yes, a term. And they can only pay another 1,000 for remedial teaching. The rest is done and is financed by the CDF leadership, because they have mobilized those resources and organized and you can see the parents and the public, they are very happy, very excited with what is being done. And the member of parliament is also very keen. So all this boils down to leadership in the sector and even in schools. But to deliver quality public education as a general message for all of us and for Kenyans, and you look at it in terms of a school, number one, there are three variables. Number one, quality teachers. You can convert your teachers to be quality teachers. Why is it that when you have a new principal in a school that is performing poorly, like this one, Orobo Boys, you go pick a very good principal, take him to that school. The school will suddenly live with the same teachers without changing. You must support and ensure that your teachers are able to deliver qualitatively. So that is one variable. It must be invested in by any school. Number two, quality teaching and learning tools. You must invest. It's not guesswork. It's not about innovation. It's about real investment. And I saw what the MP for Kiharu is doing, purchasing books, purchasing lab equipment, blah, 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 and ensuring that what teachers need to teach is really availed. It must be availed. And that is the work of the Board of Management. The Board of Management was created by law to ensure that there is investment in all these particular areas. Number three, quality learning environment. You know, where learners are learning is a home. And I've seen what is happening in Kiharu, tiling of classrooms in primary schools, cap row on the walkways and assemblies, and revolutionizing the fields and landscaping and flowers and whatnot. Because a school must be a very exciting place to be in.
Must attract a child to spend time
and
in
of
school.
course, there is clean running water. Those three variables, you do it in a day school, and you'll see a day secondary school posting impressive results.
But then
any school will post impressive results. So all this needs to be done right across all schools.
Is the government keen on seeing these things happen? And I'm going to give you the examples why I'm asking this question, all right? So the president immediately established the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms, took time to listen to stakeholders, took time to argue back and forth about the final report. Okay?
Yes.
Final report was finally released and it was to be implemented immediately within a year. We are many months down the road and the implementation of that report is not on time.
Latiff, I want us to draw a matrix.
If we're talking about leadership at the education ministry and all these questions keep emerging and you don't hear those same questions being asked at the top level of government, then you ask yourself, is the government really keen on actually changing things in our education sector?
Latiff, I can answer you. One, if there is a sector that the president has a lot of interest in, and with experience also having been a minister in the same sector, is education. And if you were to draw a matrix, and I think we should have a show to look at the matrix of implementation of Presidential Working Party and what are the outcomes. The matrix on implementation of the Education Charter and what are the outcomes. The Presidential Working Party is a creature of the Education Charter, which the President negotiated with us, the stakeholders in the sector, prior to elections. And we outlined very many issues, both policy, both financial, others are legal, and
administrative.
And we also looked at the curriculum itself, the challenges posed by the curriculum, and we agreed everything shall have to be done professional. We don't need to drive education politically but professionally, and consulting professionals. And if you look at the charter, it contains many flagships. A lot has been implemented. For real, a lot has been implemented in terms of the education charter that did not require the presidential working party, like of course abolishing delocalization for teachers, because teachers are central and fundamental. We must restore their hope and confidence, employing more teachers. That has been done, and reviewing the curriculum. It is reviewed, in fact, in 3 areas. Structure of the education system. That is why grade 7 and 9 is domiciled in the current comprehensive school. Now we no longer have primary schools even, because that was Kasumba, that was in the minds of people. So once you create what you call comprehensive school model, that houses grade PP1, that is nursery to grade 9, closer to the household and of good quality. The mark is progressively the comprehensive schools must be upgraded in terms of infrastructure to minimum quality standards, other than and also deploy qualified teachers. You can see the graduate teachers have been deployed to comprehensive school. And I'm telling you, the future of teaching in Kenya will have minimum diploma or graduate to teach at all levels from nursery. That is where we are evolving to, and this is part of it. So the most exciting thing that we'll be able to see is the strengthening and operationalization of comprehensive school system, which is a major implementation program of the recommendation of Presidential Working Party and concerns raised during the development of the charter. The curriculum, the subject areas, which were so wide and they were imposed externally, they have been reviewed downwards. For example, JS, junior school, from 14 subjects to 9. You know, you are telling Kenyans that you want to teach music in all schools in Kenya, and you put it as one of the compulsory learning areas. And there are about over 15,000 public secondary schools, and you have not trained even a single music teacher. You have not even reformed the teacher training programs at colleges and universities. That was an accident in itself. And so the learning areas have been reduced to 9 that can be managed and taught by the teachers that are available now. And within those learning areas, the content has been pitched down. It was high pitch. It has been reduced downwards completely to the level that teachers are able to deliver without losing what we wanted. Sustaining the strong knowledge system that we have in our education in Kenya and incorporating the 21st century competencies, skills, and value-based education. That is what we needed. The way we needed to introduce CBC was not to get rid of what we had. New aspects of curriculum will always ride on an existing curriculum. And that is what has been corrected. And you can see the exit exams have been removed from grade 6, KPSEA, to grade 9. So there will be an exit exam to transit students from JS to senior secondary school. And that has been, you know, the structure speaks a lot to many things, let alone the curriculum. Curriculum content is a different thing. The structure is the real thing. Now, the challenge that we have now is preparing for the senior school, because it will be the pathways. There will be the pathway of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It's a main pathway that will take over 60% of the students. And there will be the pathway of humanities and social sciences, and pathway of sports and arts and sports. It will have very few students, not so many. So the question now, what are we doing to prepare for 2026? And I think that is what the ministry is trying to work on. So generally speaking, I think a lot has been done in terms of paperwork and implementation. Look at the grading system of Form 4 of KCSE. We've adopted a new grading system, which is still a recommendation from the Presidential Working Party. For me, personally, a lot has been done in implementing policy programs that laws already exist within the PWP are some of the programs that require legislation have not been done. And those legislation will have to be taken through Parliament, and the session of paper will have to be taken through Parliament. For me, unlike in the previous administration, in this one, at least the stakeholders, including my views, have been accommodated very widely. And this is a democratic approach that we need to run education, that we listen to everybody.
So what you're saying...
The Presidential Working Party, if you looked at the way it worked, even the membership, there are lawyers, very good lawyers inside it. They are still working. They are economists, experts in economics, in education. And that is why if you look at largely the recommendations, they are so compelling.
Okay.
You can't resist.
One of the recommendations
and
that you talk about that could be compelling is the decategorization of schools. That is one of the big recommendations by the Working Party.
It's a big...
Hold on, let me ask a question. So the thing is, how do you see this working out? Decategorizing schools where the importance by society is weighed very heavily on where children are sent based on a historic performance. Now, what we are saying essentially is that we're going to level the playing field, and that any school you go to does not matter where it is that you are in the country. What is prescribed is that all the infrastructure, teaching materials, teaching in terms of staff, infrastructure for what is needed for subjects should be the same across board. That's the recommendation. Is this possible? Because what we are saying essentially is that come the pathways that you speak of in grade 9, these things must be there.
Yeah, they must be there. Now, Kenya is a signatory to global international conventions, and Kenya is a signatory to Sustainable Development Agenda program. And we participated in the launch of SDG 4 framework in UNESCO on 3rd of November 2015. And the SDG framework is very clear. Towards equitable quality education for all. So when you talk of equity, you cannot favor others and discriminate against others. Now we are talking of a day school here that is posting this. And now you are talking of a national school that is pushing all the students
to university.
Yeah, why are we practicing discrimination? That does not bring equity. What informed the decategorization is the principle of equitable access.
Can it be done?
It must be done. It has to be done.
When?
And it is being done. How many day schools do we have in Kenya?
The first class is now in grade 8.
Let me appraise you.
Hold on.
Let me appraise you.
Hold on. The first class is now in grade 8. We are essentially saying that by the time they finish grade 9, in another year, these pathways will come into existence. Everything that is required for those pathway grades or classes to be taught must be in place in the next 2 calendar years. 2 years, Sosion.
Fantastic.
Can it be done?
Let me give you the history of education in Kenya. How this equity...
In about a minute. Answer in about a minute as we go.
In about a minute. One, the emergence of day secondary schools in Kenya is a recent phenomenon. And there's been a lot of investments in these schools in terms of infrastructure, in terms of teacher deployment. And 70% of secondary school students are actually day scholars.
Yep.
So we've done this work 70%. What we are simply saying, we must make a deliberate policy pronouncement so that then we can practice equity in the country and treat all schools equally. And so the decategorization is compliance with the UNESCO standards. You cannot practice discrimination in a country. When I came in, you were talking about advertising Kiwi and the rest. These are for the households, middle class and upper class households. What are you talking about? Those families that where students attend schools without shoes and they're really interested in terms of food. We must bridge disparities in this country in education, both for all children, whether in the disadvantaged backgrounds or advantaged backgrounds. And this is equality that the bureaucrats must accept, including those rich who want to live in exclusive lives. And of course, the emergence of private schools in primary schools was to use it to access the premium secondary schools, the premium national schools. Those things, those categories will not exist anymore. So we shall all be equal. We shall run a society of equality where all children enjoy equal opportunities all over the country and in any institution that they attend. And as time is up, I will be at Tenwek High School tomorrow, a school that has done very well, a school that I attended as a student, and a school that I taught, and a school that I believe the community is doing very well.
Wilson Sosion is the former Secretary General of the Kenya National Union of Teachers. 9 a.m. news time.
I'm the greatest consumer of all intelligence in this county. Japanni, Mungu amekubariki, amekujalia umepata kazi huko kwa mshahara. Tosheka with what you have gotten. Mungu atakubariki. Lakini hivi vitu ukienda kwa poor person to extort money, mama analia, and you know the poverty of our people. You are born in these areas, in these villages, you know the poverty of our people. Wewe uko na mshahara unanyanyasa mama mwenye hana chochote. As you even go to sleep, do a self-interrogation. Are you doing the right thing or are you not doing the right thing? Integrity is what you do when nobody is seeing. So let us tackle corruption.
He also emphasized the need to deal with early pregnancies that is rampant in the county, saying that stakeholders in the education and security sectors will organize a conference Tuesday next week to discuss child pregnancies, among other things.
And there are many challenges that we are facing today. One of the issues that we are facing is early pregnancy. Kama juzi nimepata report, unapata mtoto mmoja ambaye amepata mimba ni 13 years. Ako kwa class G4 ama nini? Class 4. Honestly, how unfair can we be? So as we get this report, we want to narrow down on areas that we must focus on. That's why we have called a stakeholders meeting on Tuesday sitting to address mambo in education, among other things, early pregnancy, and how we can also improve our education system.
Students who received a limo scholarship to join the Form 1 this year have been asked to continue with their good performance. The Director of Education in Kisumu County, Rosemary Birenge, has advised the students to be confident as the government is ready to address their interest while in school.
You are a special lot, and in your speciality, I want you to feel that you are very, very much loved by the government. As you go to schools, to those schools, I want to encourage you to work hard, to be committed to your work, to be focused to your work, and know why you went to those schools. We expect that you will be the best, you will shine.
The education officer has also expressed disappointment with the large number of students from poor families who are eligible to receive their funding but could not due to financial shortages.
It was unfortunate. It was saddening to leave other children who equally needed this assistance. However, we had only allocation of 288, and so we had only to pick 288. As I thank the government, I want to pray that God will give us more money to be able to sponsor more children and more families in the county.
Some of the students promised to work hard while at school.
My name is Arvedi Nutino Mondi. I was learning at Bukna Primary School, and I'm so happy today because I have been selected by the Elimu Scholarship. I will use this opportunity to also put my best foot forward and work hard, help achieve my goals, and also help those who need my help.
And the very best to them. EU Ambassador to Kenya, Henry Giga, has advised Kenyans to embrace the planting of seedlings that are resistant to climate change in order to deal with food shortages in the world. Speaking in Nairobi County, she said climate change has a major impact on food production around the world.
You also have to look at climate-resistant crops and new ways of farming. We also visited Isipe, they have a campus here, and they're also developing climate-resistant crops and new ways of agriculture that can resist droughts and floods and other climate-related challenges.
Governor Gladys Wanga said a government has put in place strategies to use modern methods in agriculture, such as irrigation, to ensure that farmers not only rely on rain.
It is imperative to move away from just rain-fed agriculture into mainly irrigation agriculture. And in our conversations with Madam Ambassador, there are programs of the EU in support of especially of youth and women in agriculture.
And Nyeri Senator Wahome Omatinga has asked the government to fulfill its promise to coffee farmers. Omatinga, is also a member of the Senate Agriculture Committee, has emphasized that the government should control the minimum amount of money that should be paid to coffee farmers to protect them.
Na waziri, nataka nikuambie mimi niko kwa kamati ya kilimo kwenye bunge kwa seneti, na tumetunga sheria ambayo iko kwa msomo la 3 ambalo inawezesha haya mabadiliko ya kilimo, sana sana kahawa, majani chai na maziwa, makadamia, avocado. Hayo yote tumemaliza.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Asato. Good morning.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay, so it's a few minutes after 9 o'clock and we're looking at traffic here and there in the city. It's a little bit busy on Uhuru Highway getting into the CBD. Some of it on the Thika Superhighway, as well as coming off Mthaiga and then through towards Limu Road. Actually, apart from that, we're not seeing too much more. I think we're able to get through Friday morning without too much of a headache. We're keeping an eye on things this morning through the morning talk to us. Let's take a look at about half an hour. We should be coming out of traffic hour then, and then we can talk. Spice FM, KE on X.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room,
downloaded
the only way.
Taxi app from on your phone. If you have, just load some money into it. Load money into it. Any amount you load, you will get an extra 50% of the amount value of money that you've put in there. Put 100, you get 50 bob. Put 1,000, you get 500. Put 10,000, you get 5,000.
5,000.
Like that. And then you use that money for your taxi. And this one does not expire. It's not those ones that it's active for 24 hours and then it will expire.
Or 12 hours or monthly.
By a certain date.
For life. By.
You load it, you get your 50%. Your 50% is available.
And it's yours.
Yeah. Non-expiry 50%. Please download. And then the next time you're hailing at a taxi in Nairobi, in Mombasa, in Kisumu, in Nakuru, in Eldoret, in Nakuru. Did I say Naivasha? I
No,
did.
not
You said Nakuru
Naivasha, Nakuru,
Mombasa,
Nairobi, Eldoret, Kisumu. Anytime you're looking for a cab on any of those places, use SPICE30 as your promo code and you will get 30% discount on your next ride. So imagine you've already loaded some money, you get 50% extra. Then you use the promo code SPICE30, you get 30% discount. It's just like riding for free. It's like that. Ndu?
Yes.
Why do we need to buy Kiwi?
Because you get school fees.
It's like that. It's as simple as that.
Imagine.
A squared plus B squared is equals
C squared.
C squared.
It's true. In this case, it is. So what
Pythagoras.
Pythagoras.
Theorem.
So, Kiwi, supermarket, Duka, shop, wherever you will find the Kiwi with the new logo. Small tin, large tin, whatever it may be. Buy it. Then you pick your phone. Star 459 star 5 hash, right? Dial that. The code under the lid, when you pop it, when you do like this, under there, you insert, and you continue. Airtime or data instantly. And then you get into the draw. Draw 35,000 bob, 4 people every week. School fees. It goes to school
like
fees.
That.
Not into your pocket. To school. Takes care of so many things at one time. Get Kiwi, get school fees, we move.
That's what many people want. At this particular point, when you have children going back to school, you want that money to go straight to school.
Don't even send it to me.
Yeah, don't send it to me. Just send it to school. And that's what Kiwi is saying. Yeah, we will send it to school. And in addition to that, of course, Kiwi is working with all these schools and many schools in talking to the young people and nurturing young people. Our next conversation is on disability inclusion in this country. Is it a reality? Is it online to becoming a reality, particularly in education institutions? Haya Dennis is the chairman of the University of Nairobi Students with Disability Association. He is also the interim chair of the Kenya Students with Disability Association. Happy New Year, Dennis.
Happy New Year.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
I'm grateful, thank you.
Has it been in the hot seat of the Situation Room the first week? We're back this week and you're here.
Yes. And I will also not spare the Situation Room.
You'll not spare it. You'll light a fire.
Absolutely.
Comrade, tunakusikia.
City.
Yes.
Why don't you welcome Haya with the day's proverb?
Yes, let me welcome Brother Comrade here with today's proverb.
And listen to the proverb. It's in Kiswahili. We want you to translate it to English and then give us your interpretation of it.
Asiyekosa hayupo.
Asiyekosa hayupo. Haya, Dennis. Say that in English.
Asiyekosa hayupo. That whoever doesn't miss, he is not in the picture. He is not present.
That's a direct translation and it's good.
Kukosa here now has gone into miss.
Yes, it's gone into miss. Which is
umelenga shabaha umekosa.
Ndio hivyo, lakini wajua pia it's synonymous with to make a mistake. Because when you miss something,
Mr. Mark.
Yes.
Mistake.
Most probably it's like it's a deliberate miss. So when you are making a deliberate miss, then we do not count your presence as very important.
That's a good one. Introduce us to your two associations, Bwana. You're a big man. Start with the national one. The acting chair of the
Kenya Students with Disability Association.
What's that?
Actually, you just forgot the aspiring UN president 2024-2025.
We didn't forget. We didn't know.
Okay.
But now that you've told us, you can also tell us.
You'll also tell us about it. So start with the national one. Kenya Students with Disability Association.
Now in Kenya, there are very many institutions that contain students. And these very institutions contain students with disability. So then I represent them in a caucus that it's an umbrella for all the students with disability in various institutions in Kenya. Mostly my focus in higher learning institutions because there's where a lot of challenges in terms of accessibility, in terms of inclusivity arises. So Kenya Students with Disability Association is a caucus that umbrella all the students with disability in various institutions in Kenya, not only University of Nairobi, in JKUAT, in Kisumu National Polytechnic, Mombasa Polytechnic, I mean all of them, higher learning institutions now. Yeah.
In UN?
So in UN, that's where I started. Of course, I was elected in 2022, 21st May, as the chair for University of Nairobi Students with Disability Association. So as any other institution, University of Nairobi has a disability department called the Disability Inclusion Office, our liaison office. So we decided to make the students with disability have a representation in a very structured and orderly manner. So with that, there was a formation of that association as well, and as at now, I'm the representative as a chair. Absolutely.
Okay. So there are many things, obviously to have an association, that means that there are needs that either were not being met or that there's a large population of folks who need these needs to be met.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
What's the current status when we talk about students with disability? What is the status of how these needs are being met in Kenya today?
Thank you. Very most important thing for a student to be particular students with disability is representation. So there was lack of representation because there was no structure in which the representation is being met or their concerns are being met. So the status quo as at now is on trial, is on a third class. We are moving. That's what I will say. Because we are trying to reach the 5-star. We're still on third class, meaning there's still a lot to be done, meaning as much as we are having a structure of representation, there's still some hiccups. There's still some.
What would an ideal structure look like?
My ideal structure will look like this. As at now, we still have what we call special schools.
Yes.
Meaning, we are still on the integration stage. We're still not at the inclusive stage. So inclusive stage, this is where everyone is comfortable in whatever environment, such that we do not only take our students with disability in the so-called special school, we make this other regular school to be inclusive, to be accessible. So that is what will make a structured representation look like. Now, because otherwise a school which is regular, for example, let's say Nairobi Primary or let's say Nairobi High, that any other student, be it a student who is using wheelchair or crutches, will comfortably be admitted and has his or her learning prowess well continued without hiccups. So that is what I will define as a structured, where all institutions, all public, private institutions are accessible, are inclusive, such that we do not have.
How many special schools are there in Kenya?
Special schools, they are high schools, there are 8 as per the regions. Yes.
Every
region has one.
Has one. Okay. Primary?
Primary, Sadabo. Some regions has 3. Although they are coming, I heard there's a one that is being set up in Rift Valley. I'm still not sure whether it has been set, but in Nyanza region alone, no primary. There's an issue in primary. They are much divided. There's deaf school, there's blind, and now there's for handicapped, physically handicapped, and there's for mentally. So primary, there are a bit so many. There are roughly 20. Last time we checked.
Around the country?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Now, do you have a census during the population of people with disabilities, and do we know the categorization and the numbers of these disabilities?
That is now the problem, City. That with the structure I'm trying to form, one thing that has been my agenda is data. Data for all the students with disability. As at now, there is no accurate data.
The Ministry of Education doesn't have this data.
It has it, but not in a very structured form. It has it in what we call unwritten form. Unwritten form is where it is not in one document.
But it exists.
It exists.
Let me ask, because when you talk about schools for children in this country with disabilities, or the people who don't like living with disability, but who have disabilities, are we then saying that every child who is of school-going age and who has a disability is in school? The answer, I think, is no.
No.
Okay, now, if we don't know the numbers of young children who are of school-going age with disabilities who exist, then it becomes very, very difficult to understand, for instance, what it is that, even as you plan, what would actually be needed. What it is that would be required for children whose disability is perhaps their sight, those whose disability is hearing, those who have some physical disability, whatever the range of disabilities, it will be difficult to plan. Now, let me ask the other question. Are we saying, therefore, that when you've talked to the Ministry of Education, because I'm assuming you have,
yes,
do they have a blueprint or a program that they have in place to cater for the needs of these young children of school-going age with disabilities?
They do have a blueprint, City, but when I checked at the blueprint, I had a problem with it. There's what we call consistency. Consistency, it brings the doctrine of being current. So being current means that you must be in touch with what is ongoing as at now.
Yes.
Their blueprint was formed way back, even before the formation of 2010 Constitution. When we were having the Disability Act being put into place, that's when the blueprint was formed. And that was in 2005. And meaning the people who formed the blueprint, they're the people who have been the most existing, and they are the people who are anticipated to implement that blueprint. So that beats the logic of concurrence and consistency with the current issues. So that blueprint lacks that doctrine, or that notion. So that's why I sat down as a person who has now have information, and because I'm privileged to be in an institution and I'm privileged to be taking law, so then I understand the dynamics of life, social, political, and cultural. So then I didn't want to fatten a bull on the market day. So I wanted to first deal with the students at the higher learning institution and come up with a structure that is current with the current matters. So then as we move, then I will disseminate to primary and nursery schools.
Okay. Let me ask you something perhaps which is more pertinent. How many members do you have? Because you are a student leader.
Yes.
Within, now this student leadership, does it only cover universities? Does it cover tertiary?
Higher learnings.
Higher learnings.
Yes, so that is tertiary.
How many members do you have?
As at now, the members whom have been able, with their little resources, I have, are 4,581.
Now, are your members all people living with disabilities, or people can actually be members without necessarily having disabilities?
They are members with disabilities, because that is what the representation has.
They are members, so there are 4,000.
Yes. In
those who are registered and those who are known, whom you have knowledge of.
Who I have knowledge of. And remember, I'm also proposing a bill in Parliament and to the departmental committee that deals with disability issues to allow me to come up with more accurate data with good resources, because it requires me to move across the country. And MACU have been operating on a zero budget. Well, moving from Kisii, Turkana, Kajiado, Siaya, and whatever places. So then, the budget, the proposal I'm proposing to the Parliament contain that request. that now they mandate my association to be updating the nation with accurate data, which more look like a consensus, such that when there's a bottom-up economy that seeks to support, then it's supported from a point of knowledge and a point of information.
You know, I'm a bit conflicted here. I'll tell you why I'm conflicted. Because let me start with the Ministry of Education, given the role of the Ministry of Education and what it's supposed to do. I'm talking about the Ministry of Education, then I'm talking about Kenya Bureau of Statistics. We have institutions in this country whose job is precisely what you're suggesting.
Yes, sir.
That's what they are supposed to do. And when you are looking for numbers, Kenya Bureau of Statistics ought to be able to give you these numbers.
So
they have the numbers, don't they?
I do tend to say, but see, issues with inclusion are more technical. This is the issue. Matters to do with disability is a matter that people tend to take with a sheer seriousness, a sheer careness, sheer responsibilityness. And so I didn't want to bother many people. I wanted to take this mandate because I belong to that club. I belong to that society. I know what it feels. Not that we've not tried to liaise with those institutions you're mentioning. We've tried to liaise, but now it is taking more time overdue. And I do say, when we delay things that should be done in a very faster way, and I know I am capable, then I will not bother look for institutions which will still require a lot of bureaucracies unnecessarily.
What exactly are we talking about that we need? Because this is it. We're not talking about some grey, maybe policy. No. We're talking about actual things that are needed to be put in. Whether we're talking about institutions then that then become compliant. Whether we're talking about needs in school, whether we're talking about braille, whether we're talking about hearing aids, whether we're talking about ramps in buildings, whether we're talking about universities that have then become compliant around the country. What are we talking about? And have we gotten to the place whereby institutions are becoming more aware of the need to be compliant for people with disability?
One, there's an issue with awareness. Some institutions are not well informed, as we may presume, on matters inclusion. And for your information, there are very few institutions who have what we call disability liaison office.
What does that mean?
Disability liaison office, this is an office that caters for any matter that requires disability attention, that is of disability. Now, for example, in the University of Nairobi, any issue that arises that is of disability and requires a special attention as far as disability is concerned, there's an office set called Disability Liaison Office. And it's a requirement that each and every institution, learning institution, should have it. Because this is a direct office that links, that is a connection between students or staff with disability with administration.
Okay. Let me talk about funding, which you mentioned. We've had student leaders here. We had the leader who, well, he is like the group leader.
Kusa.
Yes, for students.
Anthony Manyara.
Yes, that's I'm calling him group leader. Now, from what we understood, students who are at the university are mandated to pay subscriptions to the union, are they not? They're mandated. It's not that you're given an option, you have to pay.
Yes.
Why is it that then some of that money, because you're students and I'm sure you also pay, why is it that some of that money is not diverted to the functions of this particular unit that you actually have? Because it is a unit that represents a special group.
As I was saying, there's lack of awareness, meaning there's lack of the rate at which information disseminates is different. So even the administration in some institutions are not aware on how to deal with these issues. So they even do not have a structured form in which to budget for special needs issues.
There is, what was this that you mentioned you have at the university? What is this unit that deals?
Liaison office.
Yes.
Liaison office.
Okay, what does it do?
It ensures that any issues that are directed to them on disability are well addressed.
Okay, like this is one of them. Has it ever been taken to them to address?
It has been taken to them to address, but unfortunately, these officers are not always the final decision making. Yeah, so they are as I told you, they only liars. And as at now, the only institutions that has disability liaison office is the University of Nairobi, Kenyatta University, Mount Kenya University, Maseno University, and TUM, Mombasa, for public institutions. The rest are not aware about it. The rest are in the growing stage. When I was talking to the representative at Kisumu University, they still want to form it. Yeah? Yet there are very pertinent issues that require special attention and require special attention in a structured way. So, meaning there is still a long way to go. First, that we need to first create these offices in the institutions that doesn't have them.
Yeah.
So then we'll be able to move holistically.
Okay.
You get?
Yeah.
And to the issue that city has raised on funding, now institutions are trying, as at now, to give special budget to issues pertaining disability. For example, my University of Nairobi is trying, and they do give some budget, and in that budget they cater for transport costs, because you get to understand that there are students who have serious mobility issues and they are not able to move from one place to another easily. So that goes to that department. And again, assistive devices. For example, for the visual impaired, they need to have special assistive devices and across other disciplines of disability. So this is basically where our budget has been able to satisfy. And I'm also trying to liaise with other institutions to ensure that they also cater for that. Kenyatta University is doing so well in that department. They also have good facilities, transport facilities, good assistive devices for all the disciplines for disability. So you get to understand that it's only universities around Nairobi region that are well up to date in this, as far as that is concerned. So that's why I was coming up with this kind of caucus, to first pass information and create awareness, to have that data and liaise with, make a liaison between the government and the students, public institution and the students who graduates, who are still in continuity and who are yet to join these institutions.
Let's take a break. 27 minutes to 10. Kenya's biggest conversation. We're live on SpiceFM, on KTN News, on YouTube and on Facebook. We want to take a quick one so we can get the business news and we'll continue. Haya Dennis is the chairman of the University of Nairobi Students with Disability Association. He is also the Kenya interim chair of the Kenya Student with Disability Association, and is gunning for a big seat. Which one?
UN president.
Very good. Very good. It's 26 minutes to what?
10.
Okay.
Is safety your top priority when traveling in a taxi? Look no further. Introducing the Mara Moja Taxi app, the safest and most convenient way to get around town. Whether you're headed to work, a night out, or just running errands, Mara Moja Taxi app has you covered. With Mara Moja Taxi app, every time you top up your wallet, you get 50% more. What are you waiting for? Download the Mara Moja Taxi app.
It's where we'll see the most of traffic right now, and a little bit left of it right at Pangani at the underpass. A little bit of traffic also on Jogo Road heading out towards Makdara train station, but I think that's the worst of it, at least for now. Friday morning has not been too crazy. A little bit of it left on Kangunda Road, but Outer Ring looks good. It also looks good getting out towards North Airport Road and the Eastern Bypass. Sawa, we'll talk SpiceFM, KE on X through the day as we keep things moving through Friday.
Business News with SpiceFM.
I'm Dennis Aseto. Kenyan passport holders can travel to 76 countries globally visa-free, a new data shows, indicating its growing prominence worldwide. The latest data compiled by the Henley Passport Index also ranks the country's passport as number 67 globally, together with Malawi. The Seychelles passport is the most powerful on the continent at number 26, followed by Mauritius at 30, South Africa 53, Namibia and Lesotho at 65, as well as Eswatini at 66. Poultry farmers are counting losses due to an influx of imported eggs from neighboring countries, which have flooded the local market. The Federation of Kenya Poultry Farmers now wants the government to halt the dumping of such products. A majority of them are now counting financial losses amid a drop in the prices of commodities as well as falling prices. Budget airline SafariLink has partnered with Surf Air Mobility to fully electrify its Cessna Caravan fleet. SafariLink says the full electrification of planes will be a gradual process and will be completed by 2027. Going clean is part of the airline's ambition to sustainability and wildlife conservation. Limuru Tea Company has issued a profit warning for the financial year ended December 31st, 2023, anticipating a more than 25% drop in profit attributed to increased operational cost. It attributes losses to the high cost of importing fertilizers, the depreciation of the Kenyan shilling, and a projected loss in biological asset valuation last year. Additionally, it blames poor performance on the increased cost of labor. Kenyan and African startups are set to access 4.77 billion shillings through the European Investment Bank. The funds target investment opportunities under Seed Stars Africa Ventures, a venture capital fund for African innovative entrepreneurs. It has been backed by EU through $20 million from the ACP Trust Fund and $10 million from the Boost Africa program. Innovative businesses and startups developing and implementing digital technologies across the continent in areas such as education, healthcare and utilities are targeted. For Spice Business, I'm Dennis Aseto.
SpiceFM Business. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
Dennis,
Nairobi.
He wants to be the next president of the student organization of the University of Nairobi. What's it called?
UNSA.
The University
of Nairobi
Student Association. Why? Not why it's called that. Why do you want to be the president?
Okay. I've been able to achieve beyond what I'm mandated to do as a disability representative. And then it dawns to me, then I can represent people at a large scale. I can represent people holistically and satisfy their needs as required. Briefly, when I was elected in 2022, 21st, I started operating actively August of the same year. And what I did, I first partnered with 10 organizations that deals with disability issues. And through this partnership, I was looking for what we call a long-term partnership. And long-term, meaning I was looking at the employment for students with disability who graduate from the University of Nairobi across the campuses. This has been able to be achieved without a fail. Then again, through that, we came up with a policy that mandates the school again to ensure that any students with disability who graduates is granted a job market. So meaning the transition to job market becomes a policy of the university. And that is also in our what we call strategic plan that ends in 2028. On my own, with the partners I was bringing on board, for example, the International Commission of Jurists Kenya, ICJ, when I walked into that office one good day, I introduced myself and I made my point. They called me for a general meeting, which again I made my point so exemplary and vehemently. So when and when I went for the third time, I made a request that I have students with disability at law school, because Commission of Jurists is more of a law organization. I made a request, and they listened to my request. Today, 2 of students with disability who graduated on 15th December last year, 2023, have been confirmed on 1 year full internship. And
at ICJ?
At ICJ. So proud am I. And proud is the university.
What does the president of UNSA do?
The president of UNSA, as the president of the country, ensures that the needs of their constituents, which are the university students of Nairobi, are well catered for. That I listen and I make good decisions, and I alliance with the administration, alliance with the national government, alliance with the county government to ensure that their stay in campus do not become regrettable. As simple as such.
What is that? What are the needs of the students?
The needs of students are simple. One is the core issue that brought them to the university, which is academics. So then I have to ensure that the services they're getting are of quality as their marks when they entered the university. And it's proportionate to the fees that they pay. 2 is that they get extremely exposed to the outside world, such that when they come out of the university, they come with 2 degrees. 1, they are bachelors. 2, bachelors in life.
In life.
So how do you expose them to the real world?
Myself, I'm well exposed by so becoming their leader, by just setting a good example. That is enough for them.
What is exposure to real world?
Exposure to real world is to know what your purpose is in life, and to know that you can make possibilities where there is no possibility. You can create a way where there is no way. That you can know as many people when you become a reasonable person, when you become an orderly person, when you become well-civilized person.
Most times we react to things that we are not comfortable with, right? And we have to be honest. And sometimes it hurts to hear it, but you say somebody with disability is different, is not what you consider to be normal. Absolutely. Isn't it?
Absolutely.
So my reaction to you initially, without understanding these things, would not necessarily be one of misunderstanding for anything else beyond fear, uncomfortability, because I don't know how to handle you. And most times you'll find that we then don't do the things that are necessary to do to have an all-inclusive society, not for anything else, but because of fear and uncomfortability. Am I doing the right thing? What do I need to do here? Now, to counter that sometimes is understanding. So help me understand how much easier or how much better life would be for somebody with disability if everything they needed at every institution they were at was provided. How does life become easier?
They will actually forget that they have disability. That is how life will be easy. Yes. Because when someone goes to a tuition block and is on a wheelchair and meets a huge stairs up to 18th floor, then they will be reminded that they are on wheelchair. But now, when they are
there's a lift
all over, they will not even realize that they are on wheelchair because the accessibility is so immense, is so developed, and with that, life will be as enjoyable as any other person.
For a long time,
yes,
we have seen leadership of university organizations being tied to politics.
Yes.
National politics or local politics, where you see actually politicians would fund campaigns of student leader candidates. So they have some level of influence. You can call on these students at any time to use them for your own political means and gains. Does this happen at UN? Still.
You mentioned still. So meaning there's a time which that was happening.
Yes.
Information.
Yes.
All right. And a question before I answer that. These people who are being funded, are they doing well in life? In terms of their political ambitions, in terms of their political life?
Which ones? The students that were funded?
Yeah. Because
to rise.
It's like you have an information of particulars.
Well, I don't know what becomes of them later. Some of them, maybe they'll win the political seats at the university student union.
And later on?
Then they move on again and join politics as well. Or they don't. They go into careers. Either way, there was some influence, some political influence that helped them, to propel them to become leaders. You talked about some of them. Moses Kuria, cabinet secretary, was a treasurer, I think, right?
Yes.
At Sonu in his days.
Absolutely.
He talks about the kind of interactions that he was having with politicians,
Yes.
and how the politicians would help them, even in their own organization of campaigns.
So I will call that like those who are his mentors, and I will answer that those mentors still exist, and if someone comes to mentor me, I will really accept.
Mentoring you with cash?
Mentorship is holistic. We live in an economy that requires cash, and if someone decides to facilitate my transport, that is a mentor to me. I will accept.
You see what happens, Dennis, is national politics has now become cash-based, okay? So that we say it's very expensive to run a campaign as an MCA.
Yes.
We talk about tens of millions for you to run an MCA campaign. Tens of millions for you to run a MP, governor, woman rep
35
campaign.
million senator kind of thing.
Word is that it's also become a millions kind of thing to run a
campaign in the university.
In the university.
In UNSA.
Yes.
Is it true?
Yes, it requires, because it's like any other political seat. For example, university has more than 70,000 students. So it's like a constituency. Now, for example, if I become the president, as good as an MP for any constituency. And for me to win, I have to put my shoes in the shoes of an MP vying for member of parliament seat.
Okay. And what would you do in those shoes? What we hear about politics is cash handouts and all those things.
Absolutely, I will need cash.
Handouts?
Handouts? What do you mean by handouts? I will need cash to facilitate.
Handout is kila mtu apata lunch.
Absolutely. They will require, once you are kiongozi, comrades must eat.
Why?
Comrades, because they see life. We live in a world whereby
we're cash money oriented.
I have not said that.
I'm helping you.
We live in a world whereby good leaders make people eat.
Hi.
Good leaders feed people.
Yeah. You didn't say feed people. To sustain your leadership, or for what reasons?
Politics is a good field that requires understanding, and one understanding is that you need people. People is our security. So the moment you stop investing in your security, you become insecure. Insecure in terms of you will lack information, you will lack your objective, and in the long term you will not achieve. Yeah.
Is it that the leadership are the ones who want to ensure that their people eat, or is it that their people demand that they must eat?
As a leader, you did not come out of vacuum. You are once in the common people. Then you knew that these common people lack food, for example, food security. So then it's your mandate as a good leader, which I believe I am, to ensure that these people's needs are well catered for. It is my mandate. Whether with their demand or not, it is my mandate, my primary mandate. Yes.
At some place like the university, you have outlined clearly the needs of the students you've represented so far, the students living with disabilities. Now, I'm looking at a university. I would have assumed that when somebody gets to the university, the things that they need to learn are provided for. So, if my theory is right, I suspect it is wrong, then what do they need the leaders for? What exactly are you helping them get or achieve which they don't already have? Because I thought the university was supposed to provide these things. Do they have enough teachers? Is there water? Is there accommodation? I mean, what do leaders provide for the students? Beyond calling rallies and calling everybody comrade.
I understand you. Maybe you are taking your master's or your PhD, and there are class reps in those your classes, which basically links you with the lecturers. They disseminate information. That is leadership.
Somebody who talks on your behalf.
That is leadership.
Representation.
Because the vice chancellor cannot be addressing 70,000 students every day, every hour, every minute by himself. And he needs people to help him disseminate that information, and he teaches those people vehemently, as I would say, or autonomously, as I would say. And to answer your question further, you mentioned water, that there is water. At times, there's water shortage. And for example, there's water shortage and the vice chancellor or the person in charge is not aware. So it is upon the leader to inform that in block such and such, there's shortage of water. You get a point? Now, for example, if the DVC is on an official trip to Ghana, attending a summit, and there's an issue with academic prowess, then there's someone who needs to inform him, and because he's not on the ground. So leaders are on the ground, as simple as I will.
Or responding to issues.
Yes, responding to issues.
What's your style of leadership? Is your leadership style, because we've seen several UN student leaders who are abrasive. You know, they want to talk constantly. It's comrade power. Comrades, let's do this. Let's agitate. Or is yours where you will then end up being accused of sleeping with the management?
Okay.
By constantly, you're constantly in the office of the VC, in the DVC's office, and you're coming to explain the administration to the people and telling them, yes, we don't have water, but msijali, maji itakuja. What's your style?
My style of leadership is to think beyond everyone and caters for the needs in a very unique way. Now, for example, when I was elected as the disability rep, I went ahead and secured a job by my own means. That is not under my mandate as required. So my style of leadership is to go beyond the limit and to go beyond the limit to the extent that the administration will be the one requesting to sleep with me. Not me.
They'll be seeking you out.
Yes. Because
there'll be something about this guy that we need to tap into and see how he can help.
Yes, because this person will be an asset.
You know, administration sleeping with you basically implies that the administration is then manipulating you.
And that one is in the other's pockets.
That's what you
However you choose to look at it.
My style of leadership is a way that it cannot be manipulated, because you will not find an open door for manipulation. You will only find an open door for partnership and cooperation. So that's what I meant by sleeping.
Do you think leaders of university student leaders should be very active in national political discourse? For example, currently, there's a whole issue of the cost of living. There's the issue of, rising taxes. There's all those things. Should student leaders involve themselves in this? As part of maybe what you called getting your undergrad in real life?
I would say yes, because those are issues which by extension affects the students. Now, like what you mentioned, if there's an issue with the living, with the economy and all that, students are the people. Yeah, they form the population, the larger population of the people. So then any issue that affects the larger population affects the students directly. So then it is a mandate of a student leader who is of my caliber to address those issues without failure, and to address them categorically, and to address them in particular with information bearing. Yeah. So again, the structure we formed, just briefly, we are having an objective to do few things before the time elapses, which is we are behind schedule.
One campaigns.
And the one that for the Kenya Students with Disability Association, we requested to also be mandated as a structure to disseminate as information on job vacancies. We partner with the National Commission to disseminate us with the information so that we reach the people. Because, for example, we know that in our association we have this particular number of students who have graduated of engineering. So when there's a vacancy for engineering students, we be particular. So with that, it will help our students not to lagging behind when applying for job applications, because there's been an issue that the students with disability do not apply.
So you want affirmative action?
Absolutely.
In job placements?
Yes, affirmative action in job placement. And as CT was saying, on the Disability Act, I told him is inconsistent to some extent, not everything, particularly on the clause of job and employment. It states that there should be 5% inclusion. There should be 5% in job intake. And every organization must have 5% of their employees. Should. Should. It is a should. It is not absolute that it must.
Sure.
That should have 5% of their employees as people with disability.
Yes.
So that clause was again promulgated in the Constitution 2010, and in that clause, Article 54, Clause 2, it also says the same, but it does not it does not further explains. Now, what if there is a failure of doing so? Because organizations also do report to the National Commission on their disability issues. Compliances. So there's that lacuna that there's no consequences for failing
to do
reach.
this. Yeah.
And again, on what we call on the on disability registration card, you find that there's been a real issue when you go for assessment. You need to pay some amount. For example, I'm physically disabled, which you can easily see. So we are asking our question in that proposal that what is the need for assessment? What do you need to assess in me? What do you need to assess that you know that I'm disabled? Yet it is so visible. So there's those lacunas that we are trying to address in that proposal. And our wish that the government should take this proposal as serious as possible, that they should see us as the cause for change.
Haya Dennis is the chair of the UN Students with Disability, wants to be the next president of the University of Nairobi Students Association. Thank you for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation. Have a lovely weekend. See you again on Monday. It's 10 a.m.
Good morning. This